I found out I was pregnant with my fourth child not long after divorcing my husband. I'm conflicted about whether I should keep this baby. This is long. I'm sorry, I've sort of written a novel here. I wanted to post this in a relationship advice group, but the subject matter isn't allowed. My ex-husband and I were married for 10 years, although the last 2 were spent in variations of separation. We've been divorced for roughly a year. We have 3 kids, 10, 8, 5, I'm pregnant with our 4th baby. I don't know if we'll actually be parents to 4 kids or not. I'm so conflicted. We are so conflicted. There was no abuse or cheating in our marriage, although he did sleep with somebody else during our separation. There are a variety of other reasons why we ultimately got divorced. After the initial feelings of failure and heartache, and there was an immense amount of heartache on my end despite being the one who filed for divorce, we were able to get along pretty well. It becomes platonic so quickly, and it's like when we remove the romantic and married relationship from the equation, things got so much better. We split time with our kids 50/50. That's really hard for me because being a mom is such a huge part of my identity that I still sometimes struggle to know what to do with myself during his time with the kids. Ultimately, I'm happy that he's a loving, involved father, and I'm glad that they do spend half their time with him, even if I still sometimes cry over not being with them all the time. We still do things together as a family sometimes. We sit together at our kids' activities, things like that. He has a girlfriend now. She seems nice. He met her not long after our divorce was finalized. It hurt. I cried way too much over it. He waited over 6 months to introduce her to our kids, which I was thankful for. My kids like her. Our youngest child was unexpectedly admitted to the hospital not long ago. He had surgery. In the grand scheme of things, it was a pretty minor surgery and he's absolutely fine now, but this is my baby and he had to spend multiple nights in the hospital, so this was a big deal for me. My ex-husband was there the entire time, being a great dad, being a supportive partner to me as I worried over every little thing. We spent all those nights in the hospital together and I remembered why I married him. He was always able to be the strong, level-headed rock for me. He was this safe person who I knew would take care of everything and protect me. When we were in the hospital, he told me that I'm the most important woman in his life. When our son was discharged, my ex-husband came back to my house. My baby was home safe. Our other 2 children were excited to be home after staying with my husband's sister for several nights. We were all together at home like a family again. That night after our kids were in bed, we had sex. I hadn't been hoping for it or planning it. It was just like as soon as the kids were tucked away in their rooms, we were having this intensely passionate, needy, amazing sex that we shouldn't have been having. We went to sleep in my bed and at some point in the middle of the night we had sex again. The next morning we both decided our emotions with the whole situation with our son just got the better of us. We said we didn't regret sleeping together, but that's all it was, and we were just going to go back to our normal divorce lives. We wouldn't make it awkward, just move on. Then I found out I was pregnant. We didn't use a condom. I don't even have condoms in my house anymore. I'm not on birth control. I haven't been since we divorced. I haven't needed it since I haven't had the time or interest to start dating again. I really wanted to be single for a while. I know I was ovulating when we slept together, which was probably a contributing subconscious factor as to why it happened. My body sees him being a good dad to our kids and it wants another. My cycle is like clockwork and we've always conceived on the first try every time we've tried to get pregnant. Our first kid was not even a try. It was 2 weeks before your wedding you find out you're pregnant and spend your honeymoon with morning sickness surprise. So now I'm about 8 weeks pregnant. I've known for about a week. I just told him this past weekend. I didn't know if I would tell him at all. I realize now that I only told him in hopes that he'd tell me what to do and figure the situation out for me. Only he didn't. I know it makes no sense to have a baby with somebody I chose to divorce. I don't need a 4th child. Why can't I let go of this though? Update 1. I posted about a week ago. My ex-husband and I have been divorced for about a year. We have 3 kids, ranging from 10, 5 years old. We have gotten along great since the divorce, better than when we were married. It's almost like we're friends, can do things with our kids, and enjoy being around each other. About 2 months ago, our youngest unexpectedly ended up having surgery and spending several nights in the hospital. He's fine now. My ex-husband and I stayed together with our son the entire time he was in the hospital. When he was discharged, my ex-husband came back to my house, or former family home, at our son's request. He was just supposed to spend a few hours there. Help our son get settled, then go home. However, I guess all of the emotions and being together as a family in our former shared home got the better of us and we ended up having sex twice that night. Now I'm 9 weeks pregnant. I wasn't on birth control, was on it until after our divorce was finalized, but have been intentionally remaining single for a while and not involved with men in any way, so was giving my body a break from birth control. Initially we were undecided about what to do, but as of last weekend we made the decision together to have the baby. It feels sort of crazy to me. Definitely not a situation I ever imagined I'd find myself in. I already picture this baby looking just like our other kids. I guess that's why I struggled with the idea of not continuing with the pregnancy, which I know isn't really a valid reason to have a baby. This is probably the last baby I'll ever have. I'm 39, so even if I were to meet a man who I trusted enough to want to have a child with and a future with, I'll be well into my 40s by then. I plan to be very picky, but I'm not even at the point of wanting to find somebody new yet. We're not getting back together, for now. We get along great when we're not married and living in the same house. We feel it'd be irresponsible to all of our children to attempt to get back together right now because of this. Chances are higher that we'll be able to co-parent this baby successfully if we live separately. However, we are committed to working together to do what has to be done to take care of the baby when he or she gets here. Our kids are doing so great right now and they seem very happy and secure with the current setup of our lives and homes, so we want to stick with this for now. I don't know if I really understand what I'm getting myself into. Our other kids were all born into a marriage and a two-parent home. I know that sharing custody of a baby will be a lot different than the kids going back and forth between homes. I might be feeling too positive about it, but I think it could work out fine. The new baby will just see this as normal, right? Next thing to worry about will be having to explain this to everyone when we tell them. My family and friends will get over it, but I'm especially concerned with explaining it to our kids. I'm worried our oldest won't take the news well. She also knows what sex is and how babies are made. And for everyone concerned about his girlfriend, she's not his girlfriend anymore. Top-rated comment: these two are 100% getting back together within a year and then breaking up again in another. Update 2. Several people have asked me for an update on my situation. My ex-husband and I are having a baby. My other posts are on my profile. A recap is that we were married for 10 years, divorced for almost 1.5 years now, and have 3 kids together. We slept together twice during a stressful family time and I ended up pregnant. We've since admitted we are both still in love with each other, but have not actually declared that we're back together, mainly for the same of our kids. I last posted toward the end of January. I'm 28 weeks pregnant. We're having a little girl. As far as the pregnancy goes, it's been like a textbook pregnancy, and so I feel pretty good, just more tired than I ever remember being during pregnancy before. My husband and I continue to live separately and share custody of our kids. We each have them 50% of the time. They're all aware that we're having a baby and none of them seem to be deeply confused or emotionally damaged by their divorced parents having a baby together. We explained it in an age-appropriate way. Our oldest child was more grossed out that her parents had sex than anything else, since she now understands what sex is and how babies are made. We've been involved with her quite a bit and she's excited now. I even took her to one of my appointments. She's excited to have a baby sister and she understands that mom and dad love her and her siblings, that we love this new baby, and that we love each other as people and as parenting partners without actually being together as a married couple in one house. Meanwhile, my husband and I have started to attend couples counseling. We tried marriage counseling when we were separated before we divorced, but I think we were both already pretty mentally done, so counseling didn't do much for us then. I think we're getting way more out of it now because we're actually invested in it and putting in a lot of effort. Sometimes I feel great after a session, and at other times I feel not so great and am reminded of reasons why we divorced. Overall, I think it's a good thing for us no matter what happens with our relationship. We've been sleeping together for the last few months. We already agreed that we won't be seeing other people at this time. I wouldn't be saying this while pregnant anyway, and it's not as if I'll even have time with 3 kids and a newborn. We agreed that we will not open ourselves to being with other people while we are working on our relationship and before that conversation is had between us. We are carrying on just as we have been since our divorce, as far as our kids are concerned. Dad doesn't spend the night at our house. We do things together as a family sometimes, but we were doing that even before anything was rekindled between us. We're not acting as a couple when we're together as a family. We're friendly with each other, but there is no holding hands, kissing, etc. Our main concern is our kids. We refuse to say we're back together. If we officially get back together, we really want to feel certain that it'd be for the long term, that we're ready to commit to that. We don't want to give our kids whiplash or do anything to make them insecure about our family. We would like to get to that point, but we aren't there yet. I think if my husband had his way we'd be there. He's ready to say he's there now. He'd love to move back home. But he understands and agrees with my reasoning. I'd love for him to move back home too, based only on emotions. We both have things to work on, separately and together. I want to be a better spouse this time around. I thought I was being a really great wife and I was on the surface. I also know that right now I feel so in love and am hopped on hormones and pregnancy happiness. I always feel super happy, super positive, and super horny during pregnancy, and I know I have to be careful with trusting anything I feel during this time because it's like I'm on a 24/7 natural high. I think the biggest issue right now is that he's far more, let's throw caution to the wind, even though he agrees with all of my reasoning, and I want to be way more careful. Final update. I've made a few posts about my husband getting pregnant after we divorced. We were married for 10 years and had 3 kids before getting divorced. We got along so much better after we divorced and we have been really good co-parents during this time, but we were functioning strictly as friendly co-parents. We slept together around 1 year after our divorce was finalized and conceived a 4th baby, which we ultimately decided to keep. Our 4th child, a sweet baby girl, was born at the end of May. She's so perfect and we both feel we made the right choice to bring her into the world. It was the smoothest, easiest birth I've had and I take that as a sign. I feel like I fell in love with him all over again during labor and delivery, and that's when I knew I was ready to make our relationship official and public to everyone, including our children. Contrary to all the assumptions, our kids really don't seem to be negatively affected or confused about the baby, and I don't think the newest baby is getting any less love or attention than our 3 kids born within our marriage have. This is normal to them now. They understand we're still a family and no matter what we'll always be a family whether mom and dad live together. We are still living separately and technically still maintaining the custody schedule we had in place for our oldest 3 kids. Although, the kids are with me every weekday right now since it's summer break and I'm on maternity leave. We have a different arrangement for the baby, but he does take her overnight a few nights a week. I got our family home in the divorce and he spends time here with all of us. He has spent some nights here at home to help with the baby, but he doesn't stay in my bedroom quite yet. He has not moved in, although he has tried and continues to suggest it. This is probably the biggest point of contention these days. To me, this feels like the best of both worlds. I love him and truly don't want to be with anyone else. I think I sort of function better and am happier also living in my own space that he just visits. I know it's not the norm and some might say this means I don't really love him as much as I think. I really believe I'm just one of those people who needs more independence and alone time, and maybe we never would have got divorced in the first place if this had been the arrangement from the beginning. Is it sort of selfish? Maybe. I don't know anyone else with this arrangement, but I know some people out there do this. For all intents and purposes, we are together in a relationship again. We've made it official, and exclusive, as juvenile as that sounds. We had already made it official between ourselves but we hadn't really announced it to family and friends or our kids. We are still in love with each other or back in love with each other and we are not seeing anyone else. Our kids have adjusted well. They've been seeing a therapist since we filed for divorce, so that has really helped us navigate some of this. Prior to the baby's birth we did not tell them that we were essentially in a relationship. Only so long you can keep that a secret from your kids. Even though they're young, they're perceptive. So we've recently explained to them that mommy and daddy love each other but we get along better living in separate homes and for now we think this is the best thing for our family. The only problem is that now they keep asking about when we will all live together again. I'm sure it's a little confusing to them, but I'm not sure how we could be handling it any better. We attempted marriage counseling when we separated, before divorce. It was not successful. I don't think either of us was 100% committed to it at the time. He really did not take it seriously back then, but I was more stubborn and resistant than I originally realized. We're in couples therapy now and it's like night and day compared to last time. I'm scared to live together again, so we aren't going to do that anytime soon. It's not that I don't trust him. I don't trust us as a couple. I refuse to put my kids through all of that again. So, getting remarried and moving in together isn't something in the plans right now. Maybe one day. I hope we can get to that point. I just don't want my kids to have to go through a divorce and splitting households yet again. I feel like they'd lose all trust in us then. OP on their living situation. I think it might be best for us to find a way to each have our own place next to each other or on the same property, instead of one actual house that we share. Other than not living together, we are together. It's no different than any other couple that's dating but doesn't live together. Well, it's a little different since we share kids and we were once married and I still usually refer to him as my husband, but not too different. We aren't keeping our relationship a secret anymore, so we aren't pretending to not be together. Everyone knows now. We spend a lot of time together. But yeah, he may eventually want more than I do, As in a relationship where we live together 24/7. At this point, the hubby's ex-GF was firmly in the rearview mirror and OP was still brushing it off as if it is no biggie, but I found one exchange that people may find interesting. OP, downvoted. Yes, he had a girlfriend at the time. It's in my post history and I'm not trying to hide it, but we have moved well beyond that now. Response. People are downvoting her comment because it is pretty black and white when it comes to cheating. Cheating hurts others and a lot of people value living in a world and having actions that don't result in hurting others. He was in a relationship and committed to his girlfriend when he decided that he had the right to sleep with his ex and not immediately tell her that he did it. She deserved better than to get trauma from someone who claimed to be committed to her, but was willing to step out on her. Cheating on someone does result in emotional trauma, which will affect how they will view love and relationships going forward. Personally, if he wasn't ready to be in a relationship with her, then he should have left her alone. I am tired of men in particular getting into relationships with women when they know they are not clearly over their ex-partner. It is a sign of selfishness and pure disregard of another human being's health. She was used as an emotional support and sex object by him, because no one that respects their partner would do something this cruel. So I'm not going to cheer on someone who could have just avoided this entire situation by not being in a relationship when he was clearly not ready to be in one, and hurt someone deeply. Edit, I want to add additional thought as well. Cheating is not only an emotional hurt but a sign that you give zero care about your partner's health. He was presumably still having sex with his ex-girlfriend after sleeping with no condoms with his ex-wife. With the rate of sexually transmitted diseases and infections increasing and the likelihood of the disease being antibiotic resistant, he told his ex that he had zero care for health and emotional well-being. She had the basic right to know that he slept with another person while still being intimate with her, especially with no form of protection. Not calling the ex-wife dirty but with the risk of catching a disease that's incurable, or opens you up to higher risk of illness. Every person who is engaging in a sexual relationship deserves honesty. OP. All of this may be true. I'm not arguing anything you said. But I'd like to know what everyone on Reddit thinks we're supposed to do about it. We can't go back in time and undo what we did. Maybe Redditors feel that as an act of penance we should not be together, despite very much wanting to, since that's what we deserve for hurting her in the process. We should never be allowed to move on and have any happiness in our lives, together or separate, because we did something at one time that hurt somebody. Short of publicly flogging ourselves and maybe not allowing ourselves to ever be in a relationship with anyone ever again as a form of self-punishment, what are we supposed to do to satisfy the masses? Neither of us are proud of hurting somebody. When my late husband's ex-wife passed away, I had to decide whether to adopt his children. We haven't seen each other in 2 years. Hello, I of course know how awful this sounds. But it is a recent development and I'm unsure if I'm completely in the wrong. Before I married my husband, he had 3 children with his ex-wife who were 2, 5, when we got married. His ex was still bitter. I say this in the most respectful way possible. But it's true, as they had only been divorced officially for a year. After that, custody was a big issue with us, with her and my husband fighting for full custody. Unfortunately, we only ended up getting weekends and the complete months of December and July while they were out of school. So it goes without saying I wasn't much of a mother figure to them rather than their father's wife. My husband passed away 2 years ago in an accident and I haven't seen them aside from the funeral in all that time. His wife called me up sometime last month to reveal she's suffering from a terminal illness, a brain tumor, and that she was hoping I could take in the children after she passed. Both her and my husband's parents are far too old to even care for themselves completely. I still take his mother grocery shopping as she can't do it alone, and that there was no one else who would be able to care for and support the children in a proper way. She said her sister suffers from addiction and I'm not sure if that could be something the state would consider if there was truly no one left. I told her I'd consider and needed to think it over and would call her in my mind. I feel that even though it's heartbreaking that she has to consider who will care for her children when she's dead so soon, but I'm not sold and I don't want to jump in with full custody of 3 children who I haven't seen in 2 years. OP adds more information in the comments. For people who thought it was relevant. We were married for 5 years and together for 6. The kids are now 10, 14. No, we never got around to having kids of our own and I still don't have any. Their mother never remarried. I do passively for myself but could reasonably support the 3 of them provided we all make sacrifices and their mother or the state helps supplement the income either with her life insurance or some type of aid. The biggest issue I have with myself being THE is the commitment. These are little people who my husband loved dearly but at the same time I barely know. I've always thought I was a decent person but my extreme hesitation make me think otherwise. Update. I want to thank everyone for their condolences for my husband and the life he lost. I wasn't sure if it was my right to update this, as I'm sure I made a decision most people would think me awful for. But at this point it's more of a releasing of feelings off my chest. As you know, my husband's ex is ill and I still feel for her greatly with much sympathy and will pray for her and her children. But it's been a very long time since I was in any way a parent to them. Even as a stepmother, most of their care went to my husband. I just don't feel I could properly care for them and myself in my life. I told her this. And I feel awful that I made her react the way she did. Crying and coughing. There was so much guilt, I felt it was awful. But I think I have always known my decision. That I wasn't going to take in the children. I just didn't want to acknowledge it because it made me feel awful. I wish I could tell you where she decided they're going, but after our meeting where I told her my decision, it's been radio silence. As much as I would like to say they're going to people who are perfect and they'll be fine. I don't know. And their mother doesn't owe me an explanation. But I do wish them and her the best, and in the best case scenario I pray for her health. Am I the asshole for asking my husband to help our child while cooking for family? Relatives called me out for treating him like a servant. I, 30F, was assigned to cook for my husband's family during a week-long trip, 11 adults 4 kids. I sat down to eat after cooking for a few hours and our child asked for a condiment and a drink. I asked my husband, 40s, if he'd mind getting it and he had no issue and got up. My meal and his aunt had a fit about this and said, why am I treating him like a servant? I could get up and take care of it so my husband could relax. He had been all day. They've been cold and mean and not speaking to me. I'm wondering if I should have done it myself or if I should just ask my husband if we can go home. I've got 4 days left. Relevant comments. Top comment. The reason OOP is voted info. Please explain how you were assigned to cook. Nobody except my supervisor assigns me to do anything, and I still have the option of saying no, though there could be consequences. In what way were you making your husband do anything? He could have said no. OP, sorry I tried to make the post short. His aunt rented an Airbnb. We paid it back. I'm a really good cook and his family loved my cooking, so it was my night to do the cooking. All the women were assigned a night. Commenter, are your mill and his aunt typically set in traditional gender roles? Why in the world would getting the condiment and drink make him a servant and not you? Also, do you have to cook all week or was this just your night? NTA, but if you ask to go home, you'll really turn this into something big. OP, more info. I tried to make it short in the op. This was just my night to cook. But it is all the women that are cooking. His aunt is a single mother and her sons have never been taught to cook and their girlfriend's idea of cooking is PBJ. She set the chores as this was her idea and she paid for it. We all sent the money to her. I just feel so low. I'm stuck in this tiny bedroom, smallest in the Airbnb BTW, and being the only married couple kinda felt like a slight, while everyone outside is relaxing. Husband was hanging with me but his mother asked to speak with him. It's been an hour. I tried to go out but they all got silent and quiet and just stared at me till I went inside. Commenter, that sucks. Did your husband stick up for you? Or offer to help you cook? OP. He did stick up for me and say it's no big deal, but his aunt was yelling at him to sit down and his mother just glared at me. I love my husband to death. He's good at a great many things, but I didn't feel like getting food poisoning tonight. Tensions already seemed really high as I took the boat out and I was wearing an appropriate two-piece. Think sports bra kinda bathing suit with long sleeves and swimming shorts. But his aunt called me a hussy and only little girls wear two pieces and I need to respect the PPL around me. Commenter, are the other people in the larger bedrooms there alone, while the two of you have to share the smallest? OP, it's a 6-bedroom house. Only one other family member brought their partner. But they all brought their kids. His mom originally wanted us to have a different room but his aunt refused. She's like the family bully. Is what I'm guessing. Husband came back and we are talking about what went down. Will update, edit. So his aunt arranged the Airbnb, she assigned the rooms and the chores. She has made other comments to me on this trip that have made me feel bad about myself. Husband just came in after being outside talking with his family for the last hour and he won't go into details but said that we will be staying, but if they say one more comment or if I feel any more discomfort we will be leaving. We want to stay as we have some fun events that we don't want our child missing out on tomorrow and Monday. Relevant comments. Commenter, NTA. If they're not speaking to you, just consider that a bonus. I wouldn't want to hear anything assholes like that have to say anyway. If you really want to get a dig in though, you could say to them, if I knew that's all I had to do to get you two to shut your yapping cake holes, I would have done it sooner. OP, that's kinda my plan. Just avoid and do our own thing the best we can. He didn't say much, but that his aunt doesn't want her son's GF to think she can boss him around like I do my husband. Sexist, right? He said that this will be the last time he makes me suffer going on a vacation with them and will take me to some tropical island next year to make up for it. Commenter, I just read your edit and I agree with the idea of staying so your kid doesn't miss out on fun, but what the hell is this? He won't go into details but said that we will be staying. OP. He told me some of the brief details but didn't want to repeat the sexist and rude comments his aunt made while his mother just stayed quiet. He did tell me that his aunt didn't want her son's GF to think that they could boss her son around like I do my husband or to dress inappropriately like myself. I've got a lot of insecurities about my body image and he tries to protect me. I'm 5'2", 110 pounds and worked hard to lose a lot of baby weight, so I was proud and thought wearing an appropriate, very covered, two-piece would be okay. I was called a hussy. Update. So this morning while getting ready the cousin's GF came and spoke to me and said that what they said was completely wrong and disrespectful and that she doesn't believe what they said about me. Made me very happy. Anyway, as we were heading out to go hiking, his aunt couldn't help herself, I guess, and said at least I don't look like I belong on a pole like I did yesterday. My 5-year-old yelled at her and said to stop being mean to my mommy before we could say anything. My husband had a few choice words for her in front of everyone. So anyway, we are driving home. Relevant comments. Commenter. So what treats will the kiddo be getting for defending mom? Seems like you're doing a good job there and have good backup from your spouse. OP. We are taking him out to his favorite restaurant for dinner once we get back into town and to his favorite ice cream shop to have a sundae. My husband really went for the kill after his aunt's comment cause I was lacing up my hiking boots. He had our son go up to the room and get his bag and bent down to help lace up my boot for me. He then told his aunt that I am his partner, not his maid or servant, and that she was a jealous witch that attacks me because she wishes she looked as good as I did, and that he was lucky to have a hard-working wife and mother to his child who also looked amazing. That we do things for each other as a team and that she is just a miserable old witch and we wouldn't be seeing them again. They've been blowing up his phone but he turned it off. OP follows up with, I won't say we are perfect or never have fights or innocent spats over the most silly things. But one thing is for sure, after 15 years we won't let each other be disrespected and we always have each other's backs. That is what we are hoping to teach our son. That even though things may get rough in life we handle them with grace and respect and always have each other. I was kicked out at 16 and struggled for years. Now I have a house, and my sister and her junkie husband have invaded and demanded to live with me. When I was 16, my parents and twin sister kicked me out. I lived in a tent and struggled for years. Now I have a house, and they showed up uninvited with my sister's family, demanding to move in. My sister was the one who convinced our parents to throw me out at 16, claiming there was no space for me. I spent 12 years fighting to secure my own place, and now they want me to let my sister move in because she's pregnant with her 4th child. As a 28-year-old man, I've endured my parents' toxicity since childhood. My twin sister has always been a thorn in my side. People say twins support each other, but in my case, my twin drags me down whenever she can. Childhood bullying wasn't enough. She has reappeared in my life, wanting to move into my house with her family, despite being the one who threw me out at 16. Her narcissism, fueled by our parents' poor parenting, is relentless. They always wanted a daughter and made it clear they would have terminated the pregnancy if it had been just me. I owe my existence to my sister. My sister never missed a chance to flaunt her entitlement. Growing up unwanted in my household was tough. Everything revolved around her. Despite being the same age, I wasn't allowed to touch her toys. She often got new clothes while I only received clothes on Christmas and our birthday. If we didn't share a birthday, they wouldn't have bothered celebrating it. In fact, if I didn't share my birthday with my sister, I wouldn't exist. I got the bare minimum, not out of love, but to save their faces from judgmental relatives. The only positive aspect of my childhood was my grandfather, the only person who saw through their BS. Sadly, he passed away when I was 13. That was the worst day of my life because I had no one to have my back. We lived in a cramped house in the suburbs. My sister and I shared a room, but it felt more like I had a bed and a tiny closet under her room. The entire space was filled with her clothes, toys, and posters. Complaining was not an option, as my parents believed they were doing enough for me. My sister didn't like me being in her room, so I was only allowed in at night to sleep. Even when I was sick, I had to lie on the couch because, as a girl, she needed privacy. I couldn't wait to turn 18 and move out. It seemed my family was even more eager to get rid of me. When we were 16, my sister got pregnant by a 19-year-old loser. His parents had kicked him out after he failed the 8th grade 3 times. My parents got them married, and my dad found him a job as a cleaner at his factory. My father, who works as a mechanic at an automobile manufacturing company, brought him home. Naturally, I had to move out of my room to make space for him. Our house had only 2 rooms and a tiny living area. When I asked if I could sleep on the couch, my father refused, saying he uses it when my mom's snoring becomes unbearable in winter. I was told to find a place for myself. To make matters worse, my loser brother-in-law would say, "Dude, it's not tough to find a place for yourself." My parents threw me out when I was 15, and yet I managed to pull my life together. Now I have a family. Trust me, it gets better out there. I sighed. Yeah, if being a junkie and impregnating a minor means putting your life together, then sure. Most of my relatives lived far away, and my parents threatened me not to show up at any of their places to avoid exposing their toxicity. I asked a few friends if I could crash on their couches, but no luck. Why would their parents allow me in their house when my own parents kicked me out? One classmate living in a garage let me stay for a few months until his parents found out and kicked me out. I slept on a bench on the sidewalk for a few days until the cops rounded me up and brought me home. My parents claimed I had run away. They took me in that night, but my father got me a makeshift tent from a junkyard and told me to set it up in the backyard as a reward for staying silent in front of the cops and not showing up at relatives' places. The tent was still safer than sleeping in the open. Summer was bearable, but winter was brutal. One night, it was so cold I thought I might die from the cold. I knocked on the house but no one responded. Desperate, I knocked on my parents' bedroom window, and my dad yelled from inside not to disturb him or he'd come out and knock me down. I felt so miserable that I wanted to die. I cried the whole night. The next day, I went looking for a job that would provide a place to sleep. A bakery shop needed a worker for their factory about 20 miles away. They agreed to give me a place to sleep and offered me food. They baked at home and needed a helping hand. They offered me to live in their backyard, but I had to clean it up. I agreed. The place was pretty messed up with flour and sugar everywhere, not to mention the rodents living off it. But I was at my lowest point and took the job. I packed my stuff and left. My sister was even happy and said, "Good that you're leaving, we don't have space for you here." No one even bothered to ask where I was going. I cleaned up the place and made it livable. Initially, it was hard to get rid of the rodents that came searching for food, but eventually, I felt comfortable living there. I had to drop out of high school, just a few months shy of the final year exams. My friends urged me to stay in my parents' backyard and finish high school, but I had given up. I focused on my job and lived off my salary. Soon, I realized I needed to upskill to get a better job. I picked up a few skills. My dad is a mechanic, so I grew up playing with his toolbox. It saved my parents from buying me toys, and I also helped Dad with plumbing around the house. I saved up and took a course, eventually landing a job at a car plant. I worked tirelessly to climb the ladder, and now I'm a supervisor. Recently, an old friend was urgently selling his house due to divorce issues and wanted a quick buyer. I was hesitant to buy a 3-bedroom house, but he offered a hefty discount on the market price and allowed me to make the down payment in parts. I jumped at the opportunity. 2 weeks ago, I moved into my new house, and today, I found unexpected guests at my door: my parents, sister, and brother-in-law. It was a shock because I had been no contact with them for years, and they hadn't reached out to me either. This house is nearly 15 miles from their place, so there's no way they stumbled upon it by chance. I'm not in touch with any relatives, either in person or on social media, but I suspect a neighbor might have informed them. I still keep in touch with one of my old neighbors, and he might have seen pictures of my house on Facebook and told my parents. I have no idea how they figured out the exact address, but my dad knew where I worked, so maybe he got it from there. As soon as I opened the door, they barged into my house. Mom and Dad congratulated me and said they were proud of me. I smiled and offered them a chair. I'm still in the process of furnishing the place, so I only have a bed, a few chairs, and a table. My parents sat down and started asking about the house deal. They found it unbelievable that I could buy a house at 35 while they were still renting. Meanwhile, my sister and her deadbeat husband were casually strolling through my house as if planning to move in. I asked them why they suddenly showed up in my life. They said, "Nothing, just checking on you." Funny, huh? They checked up on me when I needed them the least. They started updating me about their lives. Dad has hypertension, my sister has 3 kids, 14, 9 and 4. And she's pregnant again. Well, good for her. I just sat there nodding, debating whether to yell at them or politely ask them to leave. Mom asked if I was getting married or had a girlfriend. I said it's none of her business. She responded, "Why are you so cranky? Is everything all right?" I said everything was fine until they showed up. She laughed and offered to help if settling into the new house was overwhelming for me. Just then my sister announced, "I've decided we're going to take the bedroom with the attached balcony and bathroom. I'm so excited to have my own bathroom. The kids can have the other room." I flipped out and asked, "What the hell is happening here?" My sister said, "You have a 3-bedroom house and you're a single man. You don't need so much space. You used to live in a tent, so getting a bedroom is quite an upgrade for you. This house is big enough for all of us." My parents cut her off and asked her to attend to her youngest son, who was crying for attention. I looked at my parents and asked them what my sister just said. Dad explained that accommodating 7 people in a small house was getting tough. My sister's eldest son, 14, was sleeping on the couch, the middle one was with my parents, and the youngest with my sister. And now, with another baby on the way, they needed a bigger house. I screamed and Mom said, "You know you have a big house now. Can't you take your sister in?" Before she finished I yelled, "Hell no, I'm not taking anyone into my house." My sister screamed that I owed her for bringing me into this world, the same old story. "Mom and Dad would never have had you if I wasn't there. You owe me a place here. Our house is so crowded I can't even breathe." I replied, "Yes, thanks to you and thanks for bringing me into this world. Now get out." Before anyone could say anything, I asked them to leave. Dad tried his tough approach, raising his voice and saying it was my duty as the man of the house to take care of my sister. I yelled back that I had no obligation to take care of her, but as parents, they were obligated to take care of me, and they failed. He was okay with his grandson sleeping on the couch, but when I asked, he refused and threw me out. I ranted about how I survived with rodents in my employer's garage and lived in a dingy apartment for a decade, but none of them ever checked on me. Mom started sobbing and tried to hug me. I blocked her and asked them to leave. Bill said, "Man up, bro. I've lived that life for years and never complained. You have a big house and you're single. What do you need all this space for?" I gestured for him to shut up. My sister started cussing me for shouting at her husband. I said, "Well then, get out if you don't want me to knock him down." I chased them out of my house without letting them speak another word. I'm fuming with anger. They were always toxic and narcissistic, and now they've turned greedy. But I'm not 16 anymore, blindly following their orders like a puppet. If they keep pestering me, I won't hesitate to call the cops on them. Update: my sister and her junkie husband broke into my house. Some of you asked if my sister offered to pay rent. The answer is a big no. She hasn't and she can't afford rent. She and her junkie husband are freeloaders and child-making machines. They've been leeching off my parents for 12 years, and now they want to do the same to me. It's not like my parents are happy about it. I saw the frustration in their eyes during their last visit. But instead of throwing her out, they're trying to offload those lazy bumps onto me. A week after our first encounter, my mom showed up at my house again. This time she didn't beat around the bush and told me I should let my sister move in with me. I said no way. She repeated the same stuff about how difficult it was to accommodate so many people in a small house, blah blah. Still, it was a no from me. Then she tried to threaten me. I should have seen it coming. She said, "See honey, you live alone in this big house and you're gone for 12 hours a day. What if someone breaks in? If a family lives here, it would be safer for you. Plus, you'll get help with cleaning, dishes and laundry." I said, "For the last time, no and go away. I don't want any of you at my house." A few days later, one of my neighbors told me he saw a pregnant woman with a man and a young boy loitering around my property. They were peeping in through the windows, wandering around the backyard, and it seemed like they were trying to sneak in. He's an old man who sits on his front porch all afternoon. When they noticed he was watching them, they went away. He informed me as a goodwill gesture. I thanked him, gave him my number, and asked him to call me if he ever saw them again. My house wasn't equipped with cameras yet. I had intended to install them over the weekend. Who knew they would break in before then? Just 2 days later, I got a call from my elderly neighbor saying he suspected someone had broken into my house. I rushed home in a panic. He was right. My sister and Bill had broken in through the back window. She said, "We didn't have any other options. You were being a jerk and not allowing us. Now we live here, and you suck it up." I was in shock. How far she went to flaunt her entitlement. Bill came out of the room they had turned into their bedroom and said, "It was pretty smooth, huh?" Without thinking twice, I charged at Bill. My sister stepped in between, and I dragged her aside. I punched him in the face. Their 14-year-old son attacked me with a bottle, and my head started bleeding. The blow wasn't severe, and I was on the verge of blackout, but my rage kept me conscious. They all panicked at the sight of blood. My sister called my parents and told them what happened. Bill and his son started cleaning up the mess. My neighbor called the cops. My sister and Bill started apologizing and begged me to spare their son from being arrested. I said, "All of you are going down with him." The cops arrived and took my statement. My sister denied all allegations of breaking in and assaulting me. She claimed they were visiting my house, her son played a prank on me, and I accidentally slipped and hurt my head. She said I was mad at them and falsely framing them. What a liar. Meanwhile, my parents arrived and forced me to drop the charges. They all ganged up to make me look like a liar, claiming I was using the cops to settle a grudge against my sister. Thank God my neighbor stepped in and gave his statement, and based on that, the cops arrested them. They had to spend the night behind bars because my parents couldn't afford bail. The next day, they were presented for trial. I went to the hospital to get my wounds dressed. The doctor scanned it for internal injuries. I had to take a couple of days off to nurse my wounds. I pressed assault charges against them and also claimed compensation for my losses, and the court agreed that they should bear it. Meanwhile, my parents tried everything to make me drop the charges, but I threatened to sue them for planning the assault. Her son, being a minor, was dealt with according to juvenile law. He got a week in a juvenile facility, and his parents had to pay for restitution, lost wages, and medical bills. My sister and Bill were heavily fined but pleaded to trade part of it for community service. It's been a week since then, and it's been silent. I hope they've learned their lesson and stay away from me. Update 2. It looks like my parents aren't off my back yet. Yesterday, they showed up at my house again. I slammed the door in their face. They stood outside for almost an hour, requesting me to hear them out. Finally, I had to let them in. I wish I could just yell from the window and threaten them like Dad did to me 12 years ago. Anyway, I asked them why they were at my door again. They both started sobbing and said they needed my help. I said if this had anything to do with my sister, then count me out. They said it was about them. Dad said, "You see, I'm growing old and fragile. I cannot work as before. Our house hasn't been repaired in many years. Everything is falling apart." I cut him off and said, "Come to the point." He and Mom wanted to move in with me. As a responsible son, I should take them in. I should have if they were responsible parents, but they were not. I asked what would happen to their house and if they were going to terminate the lease. They said they were going to give that house to my sister. I was like, "Oh cool, you guys have taken an alternate route to exploit me. Earlier you tried to dump my sister on me, that plan failed. Now you want to pile on for one last time. My house is not up for grabs, not for anyone." They said my sister was offering to pay me rent for living in my house, which I could use to pay the mortgage. I said, I don't need her rent. She doesn't need to worry about my mortgage. She should look out for herself instead. Mom started crying that it was becoming very difficult for my sister to make ends meet. She doesn't even get proper sleep because her children sleep in the same room. I said, it's not my problem if she is mindlessly expanding her family without financial planning. They said, what can we say? You're not agreeing to anything. You don't want to take in your sister, and you won't agree to take us in either. You should at least let us move in with you. The house is too big for one person. I replied, I don't plan to remain single forever. They tried to emotionally manipulate me, insisting that I should take care of my aging parents. I screamed, karma is real. Remember how you threw me out of the house? This is what you get in return. I opened the door for them, and they left with bitter faces. I don't care what they call me, but I'm not going to be a doormat and give in to their demands. My girlfriend said she was with a friend, but that same friend was with me choosing an engagement ring. How do I address her lie? God, this is a doozy. I swear my life feels like a movie right now. Sorry for the weird formatting. I'm on mobile and this is my first time posting on a sub like this. I, 28M, am planning on proposing to my girlfriend of 3 years, 26F. Now, I suck at picking out jewelry. I'm the type of guy that doesn't see a problem with heart-shaped jewelry. Seriously, why is it considered so ugly? So every time I want to buy something for my girl, I usually consult one of our mutual friends. My girl's best friends are all friends with me as well and we all get along well, so asking them for help picking out jewelry is something I'm used to. When it came time to pick out a ring, I consulted my girlfriend's best friend Justine, fake name. Justine and I are quite close and she knows my girlfriend better than anyone, including me. So when my girlfriend went out to visit her sister and baby nephew, I invited Justine over to the house to help pick out a ring. Justine and I looked through a few catalogs, but decided it was a dead end and it would be better to go to professionals at a jewelry store. However, I didn't know when my girlfriend would be coming home, So Justine and I thought of a clever text to gauge how much time we had. I asked her when she'd be coming home, as I was ordering takeout and wanted to know when to tell them to have the food ready by. She responded by saying it would be a few hours. She met up with Justine to go shopping. Now, obviously this took me by surprise since Justine was standing inside my house. I showed Justine the text, and she looked as confused as I was. It isn't out of the ordinary for my girlfriend to meet up with people out of the blue like that for shopping, lunch, etc. She's a very spontaneous person and loves making plans on the fly. So ordinarily, I would have believed this text in a heartbeat. However, obviously this had to be a lie. When she came home she acted completely normal, and I played along, but it's been really hard to act like everything's fine. We got takeout, ate together and cuddled on the couch after. So far she's caught on a little something that is upsetting me, but I just can't tell her what. Looking at her kills me. I don't know what to do. My girlfriend and I have zero trust issues and we tell each other everything, so this lie is killing me. I want to ask her about it so badly, but if I tell her I knew she was lying, I'd have to explain why, and I really don't want to do that. What should I do? I know she lied to me, but I don't know how to confront her about it. Should I just forget it? This won't stop gnawing at me. Please help. Edit. I'm sorry for the lack of responses. It's been a hectic day and there's a lot of comments. Thank you to everyone who has commented so far. I appreciate them all. Edit 2. Sorry again for the lack of responses, guys. It's really been a crazy day. My parents are moving and I've been helping them. Also, I've never experienced this many comments on a post in my life. I'm going to talk to her tonight once we're both finally settled in after such a busy day, and I will update tomorrow. Update. Hey guys. Oh my god, where to begin? My last post got way more attention than I could have ever imagined. Suffice to say, it was a tad bit overwhelming. Seriously, the amount of people begging for an update was a bit dehumanizing in a way. Like I wasn't a person going through something, but more so a story. But I understand, haha. I just want to say thank you so much for all of the support and wonderful comments. I got a lot of great advice that helped me tackle the issue head on. I also got a lot of really kind comments and messages. It was awesome. I also got a lot of comments that made me realize how toxic this sub can be. There were many comments that just said things like, she's cheating, it's over, and don't even confront her, just leave. It's advice like that that can ruin relationships that just need a little work. And thank you to the people that told me to hit my girlfriend, told me I was an embarrassment to my gender, and best of all, told me I should encourage an affair because it would lead to great experiences for me later in life. You gave me a good chuckle. On to the update. I decided to confront my girlfriend. I thought about using some of the lies people suggested, but they just wouldn't make sense. To say I ran into Justine somewhere. Well, I told my girl I had to stay home and do stuff around the house, and that's why I couldn't go with her to see my style. To say Justine was helping me pick out jewelry. It doesn't make sense for her to come all the way to our house to help me pick out a piece of jewelry unless it was a serious piece of jewelry. Like an engagement ring. If I just wanted to get her a piece of jewelry as a gift, I'd ask her friends for suggestions or ask them to send me pictures of jewelry she might like. It all happens over text. None of the excuses made sense. So I decided to be honest. I basically just said that I knew we'd been thinking about marriage and she probably knew a proposal was coming soon, so I invited Justine over to help me find her the perfect ring, and that so happened to be the day that she said she was going to see her. So, what's the deal? She immediately started grinning like an idiot and prodding me about proposing and the ring, but then we got back onto the topic of where she was and she confessed what she was really doing. No, she wasn't cheating, and no, she wasn't picking out a ring for me. The amount of times that was commented was crazy. So some people are dog people and some people are cat people. Well, me, I'm a snake person. I grew up with snakes my whole life, but I never felt I was able to get one because my girlfriend has always been uneasy about living with a snake, which I completely respected. Also, the process of buying and raising a snake is very different from that of buying and raising a dog or cat. It's quite complicated. So you could imagine my surprise when my girlfriend showed me a picture of her holding the cutest Kenyan sand boa I've ever seen. Needless to say, my girlfriend was going to surprise me with a snake. We're picking her up next week. Let me know if you want a pet tax. She's so cute. I definitely did not expect this and I feel bad for ruining the surprise, but oh well. Life is good. Sorry if this isn't the ending you guys wanted or expected, just a snake. 3 weeks ago, I got beat up defending 2 girls. My girlfriend felt unsafe, grew distant, and moved to her parents, leaving me to recover alone. First of all, I want to thank every single one of you who commented on my last post. The love and support I received was immense, and it actually made me feel a little better in the mess of it all. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. All of the following happened yesterday, so excuse me if I ramble a bit, it's all fresh in my mind. Original post. Mandatory. I have been with my GF Sarah for 3 years and been living together for 1.5. She is honestly everything I have ever wanted, and I am planning on proposing somewhere next year. So 3 weeks ago I was out with Sarah at a local bar drinking and having a great time with her, as it was just after quarantine had ended where I live. At around 3 a.m. we decided to head home. As we headed to the parking lot where we had parked, we noticed a group of 2 girls and a guy who was clearly drunk trying to hit on them and get them to go to his house. The girls were clearly very uncomfortable and trying to find a way out. Sarah told me that we had to do something, and I told her to go call the cops and get someone as well, because the very least I wanted was her to get hurt during this. So I approached the group and tried to pretend I was the boyfriend of one of the 2 girls, and long story short, I got my ass kicked. The guy was at least 6 feet 4 and 220 pounds, whereas I'm 5 feet 11, 167 pounds. I'm fairly muscular myself, but there was no way I could have taken someone that big. I knew it from the start. At least from all the noise we had made. A lot of people rushed to the scene and the girls got away safe. I was rushed to the ER because the motherfucker had broken my ribs, which had punctured my right lung. Yay. After that incident, Sarah has grown distant from me. Even though she visited and stayed with me at the hospital, she hasn't been the same since. And I thought she just needed time to move past this. However, 5 days ago she told me that she is not the same person after what happened, and she doesn't know if she feels safe with me after I got beat up like that. Honestly, hearing that hurt me more than when I got my ribs broken. She has moved to her parents for the time being, and she told me she needs time. Meanwhile, I had no one here to help me, so my brother left his 2 boys and wife to move in with me. I know I'm just venting at this point, but I don't want this to be over like that. Reddit, is there anything I can do to salvage the situation? Update. Until yesterday it had been 14 days since my last contact with Sarah. My brother had left 4 days prior because I felt bad keeping him away from his family for so long, plus I could take care of myself to some extent. So around 2 p.m. while I was making lunch, I heard the doorbell ring. I go to open the door and there she is. Sarah. With tears in her eyes, eye bags, frizzy hair, looking like a total mess. During the time we've been together I've seen her in her ups and downs, but I'd never seen her in such a horrible state before. So I let her sit on the couch. We still hadn't said a word as we were both dumbfounded. I was so overwhelmed by emotions, I wanted to hug her. I wanted to full blast her. I didn't even know what I wanted to do. So I did nothing and waited for her to talk. After 5 or 10 minutes of silence she starts sobbing and saying she's sorry and then crying. At this point I can barely hold myself together. So I hold her hand and try to calm her down so I can figure out what is going on. After a while she finally somewhat calms down and starts talking. And that's where it got bad. Something that I didn't include in the original post, because it wouldn't make sense anyway, is that Sarah's mother has been divorced and remarried once. From what Sarah has told me, her biological father cheated on her mother while she was still a kid, and that's why they broke up. And that's also why she doesn't have any kind of relationship with her father. It seemed odd when I first learned about it, but I didn't question it. That is not the whole story though. Sarah's biological father didn't only cheat on her mother. He was a drug addict that also used to beat her up frequently. Without getting into a lot of graphic detail, in one instance when Sarah's brother tried to intervene and protect her mother, he ended up getting beat up too. So when she saw me intervening and getting my ass kicked in the bar incident, it triggered some kind of PTSD in her head that she could not control. That's why she had grown distant and eventually left. It all spiraled out of control and she could not handle it. In those 2 weeks we'd been apart, she'd barely eaten or slept and even made some really dark thoughts which I'd rather not go into. She told me as a horrible girlfriend for leaving me alone in my condition, and that she doesn't expect us to be together again after that, which I told her isn't the case. So we have a very long road ahead of us. My number 1 priority right now is getting her to see a therapist, which I suggested we can do together if she's scared to do alone. So yeah, that's where we are at. Some of you were right, that there was some deeper issue behind what happened, but I could not have possibly known. I also wanted to take this opportunity to say something that I got messaged about a lot. I got a lot of comments and messages saying that I was a moron for what I did at that parking lot and that I should mind my own business next time and not play the hero, etc. First of all, I did not initiate the fight with the dude. As I said when I got there, I tried to pretend I was the boyfriend of one of the girls in case. When that didn't work, I got between the girls and the dude, trying to create some space between them, and that's when he started to push me and eventually started throwing punches. Secondly, no matter how hard I hit the gym, I would never be able to take that guy one-on-one. As I said, I'm pretty fit and I've been working out for several years, but the fella was a lot bigger than me. Unless I had a gun or something, which isn't legal in my country, I was doomed. Finally, for the people telling me to mind my own business, well, let me tell you exactly what I was doing. It is mine and everyone else's responsibility to look after the ones who can't protect themselves in this shitty world. No, I do not consider myself a hero, nor did I do it for the show. I did it because in some other instance one of those girls could have been my girlfriend, sister, mother needing help. And these girls were somebody else's girlfriend, sister or mother. If I was put in that situation 100 more times, I would act the same. Edit. I also talked to her about the proposal I wanted to make this year. I was planning on doing it as a surprise, but in the way things have turned out, I figured it would be better if she knew it first. We both agreed it should be delayed for now. My church banned our youth worship leader for condemning Christian nationalism. The band plans to walk out during their next performance. My church's youth group has a youth band that leads worship during youth, but the church also has them lead worship on Sunday mornings every few weeks, to promote the youth band when the usual worship team has a week off. I'm not in the band, but I often help with lyric PowerPoints along with another girl, but not when the band plays on Sundays. The main singer of the youth band is the daughter of a youth assistant, and the daughter is an assistant too. We'll call her Emma, she's 20. I'm writing because of what happened the last time the youth band led Sunday worship on 6/30. That led to Emma and her family leaving the church. In between one of the songs, Emma said she felt led to say that Christian nationalism wasn't of God, because forcing people to believe went against the basis of Christianity because God gave free will and too many Christians forgot that. She also said there would be no short and narrow path if people were forced to walk it, before saying Project 2025 was advertised as Christian but resembled nothing of God, because God never forced people to believe in Him. No one confronted her or anything as it was brief, and they played a few more songs along with the closing song after the pastor finished his sermon. But when we got to youth on Friday night, Emma and her mother weren't there. And we were later informed, by the youth pastor, that Emma and her mom would no longer be helping the youth before a bunch of stuff about giving others the chance to be lead singers because Emma had left the church. However, word got out from one of the band's players that Emma told the band that she got banned during the week and that her parents left the church with her, so they already knew before we found out at youth. The reason I'm making this post is because of a conversation I had with the band, and other PowerPoint girl, the same Friday the youth pastor announced it, and the conversation was private from the rest of the kids. Long story short, the band is upset about what happened to Emma, and they've been throwing around ideas on what to do. The one they're heavily considering is a walkout the next time they're scheduled to play on Sunday after playing the intro song. Service opens with an intro song before someone comes on stage to welcome everyone before worship continues, and they would voice support for Emma before walking out together. They haven't told anyone not associated with the band because they don't want anyone to spill the deets. But the main thing we're debating is repercussions from our parents and whether or not it's worth the risk. There's likely a few weeks until the band plays on Sunday again, and they still haven't decided on a new lead singer yet. I also want to add that the church didn't upload the worship portion of the service with Emma and only uploaded the sermon from that day. They always include worship on their YouTube upload of the service. Most of the concerns were around tuition punishments, as some of them have their parents helping pay, but they still want to do something. And while I'm not in the band technically, aside from coordinating PowerPoint lyrics occasionally, I figured the least I could do was get advice from other adults anonymously, because we don't want to ask our parents for obvious reasons, and maybe others could see more pros and cons that we can. I appreciate any advice that anyone gives and will relay it to the band too. Thanks to anyone who read this to edit. I forgot to add this detail in my post, but the pastor of our church has used the pulpit to speak politics in the past and has even mentioned support of a presidential candidate on numerous occasions, along with other political topics on occasion too, Roe v. Wade and gay rights. So while I agree that politics probably shouldn't be spoken in church, some of the band said that Emma was tired of the often political topics being brought up during sermons, thus why she said what she said. Comments from the first post. Comment 1, OP, I am not Christian, but standing up to the tyranny of Project 2025 is the most Christian thing I've heard. That sounds exactly like what you should be doing against something that represents hate and violence. Christian nationalism is why many people are starting to make fun of or roll their eyes at Christian values. Because from what we see, Christian nationalism is the exact opposite thing Jesus would want or support. I don't believe in him, but I do think God/Jesus would be proud of you. You sound like a good person. Comment 2, hey. I hope you see this despite all of the responses. I was raised Catholic. I consider myself otherwise now, but that is how I was raised, and I was an altar server and lead singer for Mass. I was very involved in my church. My priest was an amazing human being who never brought politics into service. He was so kind and so caring to everyone in the community. When I lost my faith, he was an amazing person to talk to, and he never shamed me. That being said, other people in the church hated this about him and became vocal about it. It was exactly this political behavior that made me turn away from the church in the first place. I thought it was horrible to mix politics and faith. I strongly disagreed with it and wanted no part in it. I started exploring the history of my faith and other faiths. I wanted to know why. Why were we trying to dictate people's lives, when Jesus told us not to? Why were we cruel to the poor and the sinful, when Jesus' message was to forgive? Why, when the church had so much wealth and power, did they wield that power like a club, forcing themselves onto the vulnerable and desperate? In the end, it is all about control. Whether you believe in God or not is one thing. But believing in the church is to believe in a man-made organization. Flawed people created these institutions, and like people, they are flawed too. A community organization has the power to uplift as much as it has the power to control and beat down. And that is what it all comes down to, doesn't it? Your friend could not be controlled. So they kicked her out. And now here comes the big question. Knowing all of this, can your conscience be at peace if you stay silent? When I was your age, I could not. Do what you believe is truly right, even if it's hard. Even if it's uncomfortable. You will always become better for it. Edit. Wow. Thanks for the awards, guys. And OP, if you see this, please update us. I would love to know how this update. I want to thank to everyone who commented on my original post because it was way more than I expected, and many of you had really helpful advice. This is a small update with some really surprising things that happened since. First, the band is still going through with the walkout, and they're keeping it within the band so that no other kids tell their parents who might tell leaders. It would have been awesome to include others, but the risk of the church catching wind was too great. Second, we have a date of 8 quarters when the youth band will do worship for the adults again. Third, the youth pastor appointed a singer from within the group who will take turns singing on Sundays with future participants in the coming weeks. Fourth, the new singer agreed that the church's handling of Emma was BS. Fifth, and most exciting, 2 of the band members told non-religious relatives about the situation and fear of punishment, and they agreed to come to the service and let them head to their cars in the parking lot straight from the walkout, for safety. They won't leave the lot in case some parents try to claim kidnapping, but will be in their cars if all goes well, and the rest of us are going to ask our relatives too. Sixth, one of the band members told a teacher they knew from school who's thinking about coming and walking out too. And seventh, one of the band members wrote a little something that the lead singer will read before they walk off stage, and it would be great if anyone with editing experience could help to make it clearer or provide advice on what to add. They tried to keep it short. I will make a post about their write-up in the near future. Here's how we hope it happens. The band will play the opening song, which officially starts service, and usually lets people know it's starting. Many make their way from the foyer during the intro song. And after someone gives the welcome prayer after the opening song, the lead singer will then give the speech before the band walks off stage, and I will walk out with them from the pews along with relatives' friends. One relative said she might bring some people she knows too, which could make more of a statement to the church to see adults leaving too. One of the relatives will also record the whole thing in case any parents don't react well to it, and I will update after it happens. If anyone has any further advice, it would be appreciated and I'll bring it to the band. Most of the band, outside of 2 seniors, aren't old enough to vote this year, but this is a chance to stand up for what's right against something that is adamantly infusing itself into Christianity, Christian nationalism, and making Christianity lose all of its respect in our opinion. We don't expect change to happen in the church as a result of our walkout, but it's a small thing we can do to say we did our part when faced with it ourselves. Another commenter put it best when she asked if we'd be able to live with ourselves if we did nothing, and the answer has been no for us so far. I also want to add something I forgot to clarify in my first post. Emma didn't say what she did out of the blue. She'd been vocal about the pastor talking politics for some time according to the band, and I've seen much of it too. However, a lot of people sent DMs disagreeing with the band's decision. So before I get into it, I want to give specifics of what the pastor has done. The pastor mentioned Trump from the pulpit numerous times, including the aftermath of the 2020 election, to voice discontent over the results. He has also celebrated Roe v. Wade's overturning from the pulpit, Pride Month during June, and even compared Trump's legal trial to how Jesus was persecuted leading up to his crucifixion. Things that have no place being vented about from the pulpit, and this has happened over the course of a few years. I received a few DMs in the aftermath of my first post, and some were encouraging while others not so much. A few people, who said they were Christians, said that Emma was wrong to use the microphone to hijack the service, with her words, because she should have talked to the pastor first while calling her actions immature. However, when I showed the band the advice from my posts, I also told them about the DMs, and they said that Emma spoke to a leader about the pastor's political sermons in the past. But nothing came from it as he continued to speak politics from the pulpit frequently. Some people also said that our walkout wasn't godly, because we, like Emma, would be hijacking the service for a publicity stunt when church was supposed to be about God. Some people called us immature among harsher things, but we disagree for 2 reasons. First, who is supposed to call out the misuse of the pulpit if not people who attend the same church where it's misused? A few DMs said to do nothing and pray for God to change the pastor's heart, but he's been doing this for years. And second, the Bible gives guidance on how to call out improper behavior in the church in Matthew 18:15, 17. Dealing with sin in the church. 15. If your brother or sister sins, go and point out their fault, just between the 2 of you. If they listen to you, you have won them over. 16. But if they will not listen, take 1 or 2 others along, so that every matter may be established by the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses. 17. If they still refuse to listen, tell it to the church. And if they refuse to listen even to the church, treat them as you would a pagan, or a tax collector. Emma has already talked to a leader one-on-one, and the band has voiced displeasure about Emma's ban to the youth pastor, only for him to disagree and say that Emma was out of line. Regarding the part about, tell it to the church, I suppose the how might be up to interpretation. Maybe telling the church means telling a church leader instead of the congregation on stage. But Emma and the band have talked to various leaders, including an elder too, aside from our youth leader, only for years of political rants from the pulpit to continue. When Jesus flipped tables in Matthew 21:12, we believe he did it because people were using the temple to sell things that had nothing to do with God, and we believe that politics falls into the same boat. Someone commented a link in the comments of my first post that I never saw. But I showed the band, and we couldn't agree more. Pastor Loran Livingston talked about the role of politics in the church and how politics shouldn't be combined with Christianity. I still plan to speak with my parents ahead of 8 quarters, and I'll share the write-up the band is working on really soon. I really appreciate everyone who commented too. Lastly, I want to clarify that the walkout is the band's decision entirely. I am not a member of the band, I just do PowerPoint lyrics during youth, and I'm not even in the band's group chat with Emma. As some of the band members are contemplating punishments from parents, 2 seniors who are concerned with their parents removing tuition help. I will support whatever they decide while understanding that they have to take care of their future too, as many commented. If they decide to continue with the walkout, I will support them and walk out from the pews. But if they change their mind because the repercussions are too great, I will respect that and continue to support them. Comments from the update. Comment 1, my views on religion and churches are a whole other thing. I'm impressed by the conviction to your sense of right and wrong and your need to not sit by while someone spews falsehoods from their platform, a platform which Christians will claim is supposedly a place from which love and truth emanate. Much respect to you and yours. Those telling you to pray on it and that it isn't your place are cowards. Being afraid to rock the boat is how religions get twisted. It sounds like your church is well down the slippery slope of becoming a cult to a guy who, when asked about his favorite Bible verse, responded vaguely, like he hasn't read the book. OP. I was a little surprised when a few of the people who called themselves Christians in the DMs even used profanity against my first post, but change doesn't happen unless it's addressed, and it's not like Emma and the others haven't addressed it with numerous leaders over the years. Comment 2. It is worth remembering that the original idea behind separating church and state was to protect religion from being tarnished by politics. The underlying idea was that religion is a garden that must be protected from the wilderness of the world. This church seems to be a prime example of that necessity. Comment 3. I have a lot of respect for all of you for taking this stand. Christian nationalism has no place in the church. It is completely against the teachings of the Bible. Stand strong in what you are undertaking. You are biblically grounded in your stand. The church was given its mission by Jesus, to preach the good news in order to bring people to Christ. The church is not, nor should it ever be, a mouthpiece for politics. I will keep all of you in my prayers. You are doing the right thing, even though it may feel scary. Standing up against power is never easy. Comment 4. Hey, Christian over here. First, I love that you have biblical references for what you guys are doing. Second, the idea of comparing Trump to Jesus, no matter the political views of yourself or the pastor, is quite honestly blasphemous, so you're 100% doing the right thing. And third, you might not be old enough to vote yet, but here's the thing, if you have conviction about anything, get passionate. In this case, get mad, rock the boat and use your voice. It's what we're called to do. Will it be difficult and scary sometimes? Yeah, absolutely, but things that matter often are. So what I'm saying is, you kids absolutely rock, You're far better examples of Christ-like behavior than your pastor is giving out right now, and mad respect for that. Remember Joshua 1:9 and God's command, as you kids do this, have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. This is fucked up by texting my date that I might end up marrying him just seconds after our date ended. This just happened to me. Literally 10 minutes ago. I am dying. I am dead. End me now, oh Holy Ghost. I thought this only happened in some poorly written rom-coms. The kind where life hardly imitates the real one. I want to bury myself and never come to see the light again. Why me? Oh, why me? 10 painfully long minutes ago, I, exalted by the wonderful date I went with this handsomely gorgeous man who also happened to be a friend of mine for the last 3 years, against my apartment door that I had just closed on his beautiful face, I typed these words that will fiercely haunt me now. Bitch, I think I'm going to end up marrying this guy. This was meant for my best friend, the only other soul I could muster to express my vulnerable feelings. I sent this deeply poetic text to him instead. Do you think there is a void big enough in this planet to hold all my misery? All the embarrassment? Do you think I can make a pact with the devil to turn back time? I would just need 10 minutes. That'd be really nice. Can I please die now? Literal and metaphorical death is the only relief I might know. I am currently in my library, sprawled across the floor intently staring at the ceiling. Man, I think I'll be here forever. TLDR, I mistakenly texted my date that I might end up marrying him as we just ended our date. Realized too late the text meant for my best friend was sent to him instead. Bitch, I owe you an update. Good news, there's so much staring at the ceiling one can do before pure boredom kicks in and the realization that the desire to scream fuck 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 at the top of your lungs will most likely not last for an eternity. Bad news, you guys did me dirty by blasting my still fresh embarrassment on the front page and apparently on a famous Portuguese radio show this morning. Cool. So, on to the meaty love update. Once I realized the text blunder, I quickly texted him that it was not meant for him, with a crying emoji for good measure. Sweet man that he is. He responded immediately to let me know that he doesn't read text not meant for him. I subsequently asked for permission to die. He said. Please don't. This morning, he texted me about some travel plans we have down the line. Bless this handsome man. The gods are cruel, but not that cruel. This is where I should clarify that the original post was obviously a tad hyperbolic, just like that text, go figure. I slept well last night, and I also laughed. At myself, the blunder, just the ridiculous timing. What also got imprinted on me was that exact moment I wrote and sent that text. The moment he leaned and kissed me goodnight, I looking at him as I closed my apartment door, locking it and at once turning around and heavily sighing and smiling, keys still in hand. 2 weeks ago he had proposed going on a walk at the park. I had an inkling somehow that after knowing each other for 3 years, he was going to finally, perhaps, become vulnerable and share a few things. I had been in a serious relationship when we met and, what I know now to be out of respect and my ironclad boundaries, he never made any advances. But I was single now. And at the park, sitting there, together, he looked at me and said he had feelings for me. Long time, 3-year-long feelings. And right there at Prospect Park, on a clear night, under some 35 visible stars, we counted, he kissed me. Last night, it was my turn to be vulnerable, even if accidentally. For once, I think I understand Ted. He was always the guy I wanted to throw my shoe at whenever his ridiculous face showed up on the screen, which was a lot. As for the library, I'm not Jane Austen, but I'm a New Yorker, and the luxury of ample space is not something I recognize. My dream as a child refugee, growing up in deep poverty, was to have a dedicated place for all the books I could buy when I would grow up and have money. Here's a pic of my library nook that I built through vintage thrifting, DIY projects and patience, the library. This is it folks, the update. I might prefer this life over any rom-com. Relevant comments. The pic of the library is gone, but OP explains it in a comment you guys. It's not a literal library. It's a corner of my apartment I've turned into a library nook. Also, for what is worth, this is an embarrassing story, that just literally happened to me, but believe me as a refugee, who has suffered through deep poverty from early childhood, I'm well aware of all of the hardships existing out there. Now, let me go back to staring at the ceiling. Comment 1. You just ruined my mental picture of you in a dramatic swoon across a plush tapestry on the floor of a dusty Victorian library, cheeks flushed and with the back of your hand across your forehead, muttering things like, woe is me and verily, I am vexed. Comment 2, make it into a joke. Bring up that, That's what they say in those rom-coms, and honestly just make it a laughable experience for both. Example: bitch, I think I'm going to end up marrying this guy. Says every girl on a rom-com. Make it into a quote. I don't know how to explain it, but I'm the type of person to turn my fuck up into a joke. OP, I'm probably going to greet him with a chirpy "Hi husband" next time I see him. Comment 3. You can only refer to him as bitch from here on out. Update: 3 years after I mistakenly pressed send, texting this gorgeous specimen of a guy I would marry him seconds after ending our first date, keys still in hand as I struggled to both text and lock the door, and subsequently sprawled across my library wishing for the floor to engulf me, I did end up marrying the man. Damn, what in the world life. Thought I'd let you guys know since you did help me with your funny comments and shared shameful moments to eventually get myself up that fateful evening, dust myself off, and not commit cringe seppuku. It's been 3 years of pure joy and he's still as dreamy and kind, you guys. And it was kids, that's how I met your father after all. See you in the next chapter. TLDR, bitch, I married the man. Sending that text by mistake 3 years ago telling him I'd marry him right after our first date was just the truth. To ensure my parents were on time, I tricked them with an earlier start time on the invitation. Revealing the truth later. Embarrassed my mother. My M33 parents are late for everything. Like everything. Both my sisters and myself have been disappointed so many times. Graduation ceremonies, birthday parties, even my father's retirement dinner. It is completely my mother's fault. She is a wonderful mother and I love her dearly, she just does not understand the concept of punctuality. I have seen her talking to her sister on the phone and reminded her she needed to be at my baby sister's dance recital. She waved me off and arrived after my sister had danced. We are all used to it. My dad is just done trying to get her to be on time for anything. My now wife, F28, told me in no uncertain terms that if my mother was late for our wedding she would do terrible things to me. She was only half joking. But she was a witness to my mom and dad arriving halfway through my cousin's quinceañera. So here's what I did. It is completely on me. My wife was not involved. If there is a dick move, it was completely mine. When we were getting samples for the wedding, I talked to the printer and had one special invitation printed with the time on it stated as being 1 hour earlier than the actual start time of the ceremony. My mother was beside herself apparently when they left the house and thought they were going to miss the wedding since she was a part of it with her and my MIL lighting the candles we would use to light the unity candle and stuff. When she arrived and noticed other people were also just arriving and parking, she was so relieved that we were starting late that she just went with it. The ceremony went off beautifully. And so did the wedding pictures and the reception. The problem came last Sunday. My parents came over for a big family dinner and we didn't bother starting the grill until they showed up. She asked why everyone wasn't eating and we just said we knew we would be waiting for them since they are always late. She said that she was not always late and had been on time for my wedding. She hadn't been. They arrived 45 minutes after the time on their invitation. My idiot cousin John, real name because it's common and he deserves people to know he is adult, snorted at her statement. A few other people giggled or smiled at this and she picked up and asked what was so funny. I came clean and told her about the special invitation. She is pissed at me for not trusting her and making her look foolish in front of everyone. If my cousin had just controlled himself, she never would have known. Edit. Part of the reason she is mad is because she had her invitation framed. To be honest, I was already planning a heist with my sisters to replace it with the real one in case she ever noticed the discrepancy between hers and the one we have framed in our home. Edit number 2. Yeah, we are Latinos. And no, I do not in any way consider it racist. How many of you guessed that? I have been to Spain and it's an issue there too. And the Philippines, basically anywhere those guys were in charge. Edit 3. Stop defending John. He and I have spent 30 years messing with each other. I have an AITA story that ends with me getting an offensive tattoo, $5,000 for removal, and him getting a body cavity search at the Mexican border. I would post it, but it happened like 10 years ago. Verdict: not the asshole AITA for causing my cousin to have a body cavity search at the Mexican border, September 1st, 2022. Fine, you win. Here is the relevant part of the story. I grew up with my older cousin John. We constantly fight like in a cartoon. I also know I can trust him with my life. And he knows I will always have his back. We do, however, try and fuck each other over as much as possible. Because it's funny. So he and I went on vacation to Mexico. Things happened. I got a tattoo. Different story. Anyways, since we have relatives all over, I can always find anything I need. In this particular case, what I needed was some of the substance that cops use to train drug-sniffing dogs. It is not an illegal or controlled substance in Mexico. But the dogs will hit on you if they smell it. So I have to stay in Mexico a few extra days to deal with some of the situations he created. I was kind enough to take him to the border in TJ so our other cousin could pick him up on the American side. I was just hoping he would get the shot scared out of him when the drug dogs hit on his luggage. We learned from a young age never to carry anything illegal over international borders because we are almost always selected for screening. I knew for a fact he was clean. Just hungover. Anyways, it turns out that when a kid born in a certain South American country, carrying a Canadian passport, and only a backpack crosses the border and the drug dogs indicate he should be searched, he gets very thoroughly searched. And when they don't find anything, well, let's just look at the title of this post. He thinks I went too far. Edit: yes. I'm fully aware it was overkill. Can I defend my actions? Not really. Taken as a totality of our lives though, I still probably owe him for the stuff he has done to me. Like a lot. For the record, I did apologize. Update July 22, 2024, 2 years later. What happened? My parents have been embarrassed for 2 years now because of how I tricked them into being on time for my wedding. Pretty much every time I see them they say I was a dick not to trust them. Our church is very busy and full of young people. So lots of weddings. To the point where there are 3 weddings every Saturday all summer long. 1 at 10, 1 at noon, and 1 at 3. Sometimes, but not often, there is also an evening wedding. My little sister just got married. She snagged the noon slot. My mom got super involved in planning the wedding to prove that I'm just an immature asshole. She said that she would be on time and not miss anything. Side note. I personally hate when people clink glasses to get the bride and groom to kiss. At our wedding people had to sing a song. My cousin John has no shame and sang like 10 times. I think people were bribing him with alcohol. I set up a betting pool for kisses depending on how late my parents were. It cost $10 and if you guessed within 5 minutes you got a free pass to make my sister and her husband kiss. Almost everyone bet on time, because of the shit extravaganza at my wedding. The correct answer was 25 minutes. Only me, my dick cousin John, and his sister Yvonne got free passes for the kissing. And I bet $100. I was confident. We raised almost $1,500 for the honeymoon with my stupid idea. And I got to interrupt my sister's eating with my 10 passes. Win-win. Except for my mom, who thinks I did it to embarrass her. She literally helped plan the wedding and was still late. By over half an hour. We were literally cleaning up the decorations in my sister's colors while the next wedding was decorated after us. So that's that. My mom will never change. But I have harnessed her inability to give a shit about punctuality for the good of humanity. See you whenever my littlest sister gets married. Later. Stepmom falsely accused me of assault to block my inheritance at 21. Dad believed her and cut me off. 7 years later, he learned the truth. When I was 21, my stepmother falsely accused me of assault to prevent me from inheriting my father's wealth. My dad believed her and cut me off. 7 years later, he discovered the truth. Hello everyone. My biological parents divorced when I was 9, and they shared equal custody of me. I spent weekdays with my mom, who lived near my school, and weekends with my dad. Despite their separation, both parents were always kind and gentle towards me. While I was sad they were not together, I understood they both loved me deeply. A few years later, my dad met Gina, who would become my stepmother. When I was 11, my dad introduced her to me. She seemed nice, and my dad was clearly happy. He hoped we would get along well. Gina had twin daughters, Emma and Emily, who were 14 at the time. Raised without their father, the twins were quite immature and would throw public tantrums if they didn't get their way. As an introvert, I quietly observed their behavior. After a year of dating, my dad and Gina decided to marry when I was 12. Even my mom attended the wedding. I was excited to have a new family member. Initially, I thought my stepmother and I got along well. However, a few months after their honeymoon, she told me one morning that she didn't really like me. She said we needed to pretend to get along for my dad's sake when he was around. She also told me to stay out of her way when he wasn't there because she couldn't stand the sight of me, as I reminded her of my mom. Hearing her harsh words broke my heart. I had genuinely liked her and hoped for a good relationship. The twins overheard her and later teased me, saying my dad didn't love me and preferred them. I remember crying and telling my mom about it. She immediately called my dad and gave him an earful. My dad assured her that my stepmom would never say such things and that I must have misunderstood her. The following weekend, when I visited my father, my stepmother appeared upset. She stayed silent in front of my dad, but as soon as he left, she angrily whispered to me, threatening that she would ensure I no longer had a dad in my life if I ever told my mom anything about her. She also warned that she would divorce my dad and take all his money, leaving him destitute if I didn't keep quiet. At just 12 years old, I was terrified for my dad, so I nodded in agreement. From that day on, Gina made it her mission to make my life miserable in every way possible. Being a child, I felt I had to endure it silently. Whenever we were alone, she would say hurtful things to me and I would stay silent, hoping she would eventually stop bullying me. She would insult my height and weight, calling me ugly. I hoped my dad would notice, but he never did. He believed Gina and I had a good relationship and would often force me to go shopping and eat out with her and the kids. She would use my dad's card to pay for our meals but wouldn't let me eat anything substantial at the restaurant. I was only allowed to have soup or dessert, no main course. I would sit there miserably, watching them finish their meals while crying quietly. I would return home hungry and she would force me to go to bed without eating. Many nights I cried myself to sleep, both hungry and exhausted from her cruelty. At that point, I was at my wit's end, scared, angry, and frustrated with both my stepmom and my dad. This is why I dreaded visiting my dad on weekends. Every Friday evening, I would try to avoid visiting by coming up with excuses like a stomach ache so I could stay with my mom. My parents started noticing, and my dad would call, expressing sadness at not seeing me. My mom would urge me to tell her if something was wrong, but I always kept quiet, still scared of Gina's threats. When I was 14, my dad decided to take the whole family, including me, on a trip to Greece. Initially, I didn't want to go, but my mother told me it was a good opportunity to travel and see the world, so I reluctantly agreed to join them. As usual, Gina pretended to be sweet and kind in front of my dad, asking about school as if she genuinely cared. I noticed she would subtly tease me in her sweet voice, making hurtful comments that wouldn't outright portray her as mean. For example, whenever I mentioned playing basketball, she would joke that I needed to be taller for that sport, even though I was quite tall for my age. She would then say I should focus more on studies if I ever wanted to be successful. The twins would smirk and call me names like meathead, even though I had better grades than them. My dad would notice but choose to ignore it. Whenever I expressed that her comments hurt me, my dad insisted she was just teasing and that I should lighten up. Gina would nod and tell my dad that I had no sense of humor and needed to learn to have fun. This continued throughout the vacation. One day, in a moment of anger when she and the twins were teasing me about my weight while I was trying to enjoy the pool, I decided to retaliate. I told the twins that their double chins were embarrassing, watching their faces fall. I then turned to Gina and told her she shouldn't wear a shrug over her bikini because her huge stomach was still visible, making her look like a penguin. Gina's face turned red with embarrassment, and she ran back to the hotel room. The twins started yelling at me, calling me sexist and saying how horrible it was for me to say such things about them. Later, my dad confronted me, clearly angry. He asked if I had really spoken to my stepmother and stepsisters like that, and when I admitted it, he lectured me about how he had raised me better and that I should never talk to a woman about her weight. I argued back that they were criticizing my weight, looks, and height, but my dad forced me to apologize to Gina, who had locked herself in the bathroom crying after what I said. Gina and the twins made a big show of accepting my apologies. When I got home, I told my mom everything. She spoke to my dad, who tried to blame me for the whole situation. My mother threatened to call CPS on him if Gina ever commented on my weight or looks again. This scared my dad, and after that, Gina never said anything to me. However, she and the twins would blatantly ignore me whenever my dad wasn't around, which I honestly didn't mind. When I was 16, my mom went away for a few days, so I stayed with my dad and Gina. Gina complained about having to cook for one more person, so on my last night, I decided to make dinner since my mom had taught me to cook from a young age to be independent. Gina wanted to invite some friends over when she heard I was cooking. I prepared the meal, set the table, and served dinner. Everyone loved the food and praised me. My dad decided to do the dishes, so I went to my room. From there, I heard Gina and her friends talking loudly outside my window. Her friends were saying how lucky she was to have a nice husband and a great house. When they mentioned how nice it was that I cooked for them, Gina went on a rant about how annoying I was and that she couldn't stand seeing my face. She told her friends she couldn't wait until I was 18 so she wouldn't have to see me every weekend. When one of her friends mentioned again how nice I seemed, Gina admitted she had hoped I would fail at cooking so she could blame me for something. This shocked me because I was trying to be polite to her, even though I knew she hated me. As time went on, Gina's dislike for me only grew. During college, when I visited my dad for a few days at his insistence, Gina would completely ignore me. She would schedule family activities with just dad and the twins or her and the twins, leaving me at home. If I woke up late during my vacation, she would yell at me, calling me lazy and inconsiderate, even though I always cleaned up after myself. I knew I was always respectful to her because my dad would be furious if I wasn't. Despite being polite and careful not to upset her, it felt like nothing I did was ever enough. She was also inconsiderate of my privacy. She would loudly enter my room while I was sleeping, waking me up or barging in without knocking, making me extremely uncomfortable. She would randomly search my room and look under my bed for reasons unknown to me. She refused to pick up dinner for me but did so for the family, never inviting me to join them. Despite this, I kept quiet, tried to stay out of the way, and spent time with Dad whenever possible. Now, on to the main incident. When I turned 21, my dad invited me to visit him, saying he had some important news to share. It had been a while since I last visited, so I felt a bit apprehensive, but my mother encouraged me, saying it was good news. I agreed and booked my tickets. Upon arrival, my dad greeted me warmly at the airport, and we drove back to his place. I asked him about the news, but he said he would reveal everything during the family dinner. When we arrived, I noticed the twins were home too. It had been a while since I had seen Emma and Emily. They didn't acknowledge my presence, and I didn't acknowledge theirs either. That night, during dinner, my dad started by expressing how proud he was to have 3 wonderful children. He spoke about his gratitude for having such a loving family and wanted to share some exciting news. The atmosphere was positive, and I felt a sense of anticipation as he continued speaking. He looked at each of us with a smile, including Gina, who had been giving me icy glares all day. My dad went on to say that he had recently lost a friend to a heart attack, which made him realize how lucky he was to have us. He had spoken to a lawyer and made a will. Upon hearing the word will, Gina and the twins perked up with excitement. Dad said he had decided to leave the house to my stepmom, as she was his wife. Gina beamed with pride and kissed him on the cheek. My dad's house was a 5-bedroom place, and if Gina ever decided to sell it, she could make a fortune. Dad then announced he was leaving his entire retirement account and his car to me. This wasn't just any car, it was a vintage car he had spent a lot of time and money maintaining. The car held sentimental value for both of us, as he often shared stories of his youth and adventures associated with it. As I processed this information, I realized that leaving the car to me was his way of expressing his love. As my dad spoke about his pride in me inheriting the car, Gina's expression shifted from pride to discontent. She exchanged glances with the twins, who seemed equally displeased. It was clear that the idea of me inheriting a significant sum of money and the beloved vintage car stoked their resentment. Dad, apparently unaware of the tension in the room, continued to explain how he would leave the joint bank account he shared with Gina to the twins. Since Gina was a homemaker, the money was entirely my dad's. He expressed his wish for the account to be equally divided between them, assuring them they would have money and a house to live in, so they needn't worry if anything happened to him. I thought this arrangement was fair and had no issues with it. However, the twins immediately voiced their disappointment, saying they had expected more. They argued that my dad should also leave them his retirement account, claiming I didn't need it anyway. When my dad questioned their reasoning, Gina chimed in, stating that as a guy I should find my own way, whereas they were women and needed more money for financial security. My dad reminded Gina that he had already taken care of their college funds and now they were also getting a house and a bank account, so they had nothing to worry about. Despite this, Gina kept insisting that I didn't deserve so much money. My dad firmly reiterated that his decision was final. I sat quietly, observing as the argument escalated. Suddenly, Gina burst into tears. We looked at her, startled, and my dad reassured her that there was no need to cry since he had divided everything fairly. Through her sobs, Gina claimed she had kept silent for years to protect the family but couldn't hold it in any longer. The room fell into awkward silence, and my dad and I exchanged confused looks. Despite the palpable tension, he gently encouraged Gina to share what was weighing on her mind. Amidst her sobs, Gina began to recount how, a few years ago, I had supposedly tried to force myself on her, but she had kept it hidden to protect me. I was stunned, completely blindsided by the unexpected accusation. Before I could even grasp what was happening, Gina started elaborating on her fabricated story. She told my dad that after our vacation in Greece, where we had an argument about weight and height, I would constantly stare at her and attempt to enter her bedroom uninvited. I sat frozen in my chair as she continued to concoct tales of how I would try to barge in every time she took a shower or get uncomfortably close to her face when we were alone. She claimed she dreaded having me over every weekend because she feared I would behave the same way with the twins. I tried to defend myself, vehemently denying the baseless accusations and yelling at her for having the audacity to make up such lies, but Gina continued to cry as if she were the victim. She went on about how, as I grew older, I made her increasingly uncomfortable and, on one occasion when we were alone, I allegedly tried to force myself on her. My eyes widened in shock, and the blood drained from my face upon hearing such a serious accusation. My dad looked utterly confused and concerned, his eyes darting between me and Gina, clearly at a loss for words. Gina continued her story, claiming she had suffered in silence for years, afraid to speak up for the sake of the family. I yelled at Gina, calling her a psycho, insisting there was no way I had ever looked at her inappropriately, let alone touched her. Gina yelled back that she was done keeping her silence and needed to expose a monster like me. The twins began shouting furiously at me, accusing me of putting their mother through this and using words like rapist and molester. My head was spinning, and it all felt like a bad dream. I couldn't believe how a pleasant evening had turned into such wild accusations. I looked at my dad for support, but he remained quiet, clearly trying to process everything Gina had said. He asked her if what she had spoken was true, and Gina nodded, asserting that she would never lie to him about his own son and that, as his wife, he should believe her. While I tried to defend myself, my dad asked Gina why she hadn't spoken up earlier. She explained that she feared no one would believe her since I was a minor trying to do inappropriate things with her. As a stepmother who had married my dad, she felt people would dismiss her words. She claimed she had to bear this silently to protect the family. I was crying at this point, begging my dad not to believe her. I never imagined Gina could fabricate such atrocious lies, especially after what she had put me through over the years. Unfortunately, Gina's manipulation had strained my relationship with my dad, and he seemed torn between trusting me and believing his wife. The twins, influenced by their mother's narrative, supported Gina's false accusations and yelled at me to leave their house. I yelled back that it was my dad's place and they shouldn't believe their mother's lies. My dad, amidst the chaos, looked up at me and told me to leave the house until the matter was resolved. It felt like a punch to the gut. Being rejected by my own father, who chose to believe his second wife over me, left me hurt, confused, and betrayed. I packed my belongings and left the home I once thought was mine. I flew straight to my mother, who was shocked to see me at her doorstep. When I told her everything, she was furious and ready to confront my stepmom. But I asked her not to, knowing how unpredictable and dangerous Gina could be. If Gina could concoct such wild lies to get me kicked out of my dad's house because she was upset about the inheritance, she could do much more to ruin my life. I couldn't risk having her in my life any longer, which is why I decided to cut off my dad permanently. Since he chose to believe her, he didn't deserve to have me in his life. Later, my mom told me that my dad called her to express his shame in having a son like me and declared he wanted nothing to do with me. Despite her attempts to defend me, it was in vain. My dad's side of the family, convinced by Gina's story, also attacked my mom, accusing her of raising a pervert. I can't even begin to fathom the pain my mom felt hearing such words about her son. The damage was done, and Gina had won. I wish I could say my life improved after cutting her off, but it didn't. Gina and the twins continued bombarding me with vile text messages, threatening that I should stay away from my dad forever. It got so bad that I had to change my number to escape them. Even after that, things didn't get better. Gina's actions left me terrified of being around any woman, fearing I would be falsely accused again and lose my job and career. I was scared to meet anyone or go on dates. Throughout this ordeal, my mom stood by me and believed me. I went through severe depressive and suicidal episodes, and my mom flew in to live with me for a couple of months to make sure I was all right. Slowly, my mental health improved, and I started to rebuild my life. Eventually, I met a wonderful woman named Mara, who brought joy back into my life. She has completely changed my life and my mom adores her. Mara and my mom mean everything to me, and thanks to them I continue to live my life with purpose. Just a week ago I received a call from an unknown number. Thinking it might be Amazon, I answered. To my shock, it was my dad. I was stunned to hear his voice after nearly 7 years. He sounded old. When I asked how he got my new number, he dodged the question and asked if I was doing okay. I remained silent and then told him not to bother me again since I had nothing to say to him. That's when my dad broke down and started crying. He begged for my forgiveness, admitting how wrong he was to abandon his own son. My curiosity was piqued, so I waited for him to explain. My dad then revealed that Gina had been cheating on him with his best friend for years. When he confronted her with proof, she stopped hiding and confessed she was tired of being married to a pathetic man like him. Gina admitted she had only married him for his money and despised being with him. When my dad pressed her further, she confessed to fabricating all the accusations against me because she hated me and wanted all his wealth for herself and her daughters. As you can imagine, my dad divorced her, and she got nothing from the marriage due to her affair. Despite her lawyers fighting for alimony, my dad said he had been waiting to divorce Gina so he could officially reach out to me and apologize for what he put me through. He expressed his desire to make up for lost time and rebuild our father-son relationship. At the mention of father and son, I couldn't help but scoff. I told him that he was no father of mine after how quickly he abandoned me for his wife's nasty accusations. I told him I wanted nothing to do with him and that he should stop bothering me. I ended the call and hoped he got the message. Since then, I've been bombarded with calls from my dad and his side of the family, who I don't even talk to, saying that my dad has suffered enough and that I'm just making it harder on him. Their messages leave me feeling conflicted. Am I the bad guy for refusing to talk to my dad after he cut me off due to Gina's false accusations? Update 1, my post was locked, but hopefully it's okay now. I've posted the link and tried my best with spacing. I'm on mobile. To everyone who offered support and advice, thank you so much. Your words helped me see things more clearly. I'm not just furious at my dad for believing my stepmother over me but also for all those years she harassed me while he did nothing to protect me. I was just a child and she blackmailed and manipulated me while I kept quiet. I think it's time I open up to my mom and let her know exactly what I went through because I know she'll understand. Update 2. Hi everyone, it's been a week since my last update. For those concerned about my mental health, I'm doing okay. Thank you for your kindness. I booked tickets for my mom to come visit me so I could tell her and Mara everything. They already sensed something was up. I started by telling them about Dad's contact after all these years, which shocked my mom. She asked why he reached out, and I explained. She had no idea he had gone through a divorce and was furious at Gina for what she put everyone through. Then I told them about how Gina would manipulate me when I was just 12 years old. I recounted how she bullied me when Dad wasn't around and threatened to divorce him if I ever told him. I didn't realize how traumatic these events were until I began to open up about them one by one. By the time I finished, I had tears streaming down my face. Mara and my mom were crying quietly as well. My mom immediately hugged me, repeatedly saying that I shouldn't have kept this all in and that it was okay to share. I cried for half an hour while my mom held me. Mara also told me that no child should have gone through what I did and that it was completely fine if I chose never to speak to my dad again since he should have protected me. My mom nodded, saying I had no obligations to explain anything to my dad because when I needed him the most, he chose to believe his wife over me. The only reason he was reaching out now was that he was lonely and had no family left. That's when I realized they were right. My dad perhaps never really loved me because if he did, he would have never believed I was capable of such things. Since then, I've felt much lighter after sharing my past with Gina out loud with my mom and Mara. I've blocked my dad and will continue to block any other family member who tries to interject in my life. I owe no explanations to those who chose to abandon me. Update 3. Wow, it's been 6 months since I wrote this post, and I can't believe how much my life has changed since then. I want to start by sharing some happy news. I proposed to Mara, and she said yes. My mom is thrilled for us, and we're considering moving closer to her because the schools are better there. Since both of us can work from anywhere, it makes sense for our future family. Thanks to advice from people on Reddit, I've also started therapy. It's helping me feel better, step by step. I'm trying to focus on the positive aspects of my life, like Mara and my mom. They've always been there for me, and I'm deeply grateful for their support. The past has been tough, but I'm looking forward to a brighter future, free from all the lies and drama. Adoptive parents kicked me out at 17 for getting pregnant and refusing to keep my baby. 20 years later, their biological son reached out to me. When I was 17, my adoptive parents kicked me out and disowned me because I got pregnant and refused to give them my baby. 2 decades later, their biological son found me on Facebook and reached out. I was just 4 years old when I lost my parents in a tragic car accident. I don't remember much about the crash itself, just that one moment I was in the back seat and the next time I opened my eyes, I was in a hospital. Waking up to a world of nurses and doctors was terrifying for me as a child. I remember a CPS worker sitting beside me, explaining that my parents had died and I would need to stay with another family for a while. It was also confusing and overwhelming. After that, I went through a series of foster homes, none of which ever felt like home. When I was 5, I was finally placed with Lorraine and James, who had been eager to have a child of their own. From the start, I felt their warmth and genuine care. They welcomed me into their home without hesitation, filling the emptiness I had felt from losing my own family. It seemed like, after all the tragedy, I had finally found a second family. However, as soon as I moved in, I noticed that James was very strict and disciplined, while Lorraine seemed to always follow his lead. I later learned that James's strictness was due to his background as an Army veteran who had been injured in action. His military experiences explained his obsession with meticulous planning and order. Understanding this didn't make it any easier when he would get angry over small things, like being a minute late for church. His strictness often left me feeling anxious and like I had to walk on eggshells around him. Lorraine, on the other hand, was more laid back but also drank a lot when James wasn't around. I watched her finish entire bottles of wine by herself, and she always seemed lost in her thoughts. She rarely asked about my school or homework, and aside from drinking, her main activities were cooking and cleaning because James was very particular about that. At first, things were smooth and I didn't witness many conflicts between them, but as I grew older, I began to see James's true nature. He was abusive. For James, my academic performance was everything. He constantly pressured me to improve, and if anyone outperformed me, he would get enraged. Even the slightest dip in my grades would result in him hitting me and calling me stupid. He frequently threatened to send me back to the orphanage if my marks didn't meet his expectations. As a child, I didn't realize this threat was empty, and it terrified me each time he mentioned it. I worked tirelessly to avoid being sent back. I also observed Lorraine and James having arguments, which would end with James dragging her into their bedroom. She would emerge with bruises on her hands and face. At first, I didn't understand what was happening, but it soon became clear that he was physically abusing her. To keep me from witnessing his violence, he would isolate Lorraine. I couldn't understand why Lorraine never called the police. After their fights, she would just sit and cry for hours, while James would drink beer and watch TV. Realizing James's abusive nature made me fear being alone with him or doing anything that might upset him. But as anyone who has lived in an abusive environment knows, abusers will find any excuse to lash out. No matter how careful I was or how hard I tried to avoid provoking him, he always found a reason to be angry. Initially, it was all about my grades, but as I grew older, his focus shifted. It wasn't just about academics anymore. He criticized everything. From the clothes I wore to the friends I chose and even any romantic interests I had. He insisted I come straight home from school, claiming that spending time with friends was a distraction and that they would amount to nothing. According to him, I needed to keep my focus solely on my studies. Unbeknownst to James, Lorraine discreetly allowed me to spend an hour with my friends after school. Knowing that James wouldn't return until later in the evening, she saw it as a small chance for me to enjoy some normalcy and social interaction beyond the tense atmosphere at home. These brief moments away from the constant pressure and scrutiny were precious to me, and I valued the time spent with my friends, even if it was short-lived. Lorraine's quiet act of kindness meant a great deal to me. However, things took a turn for the worse when James lost his job. The job loss seemed to heighten his frustration and anger, worsening the already abusive environment at home. With the added strain of financial instability, James became even more unpredictable and volatile, lashing out over the smallest things. I recall one night when Lorraine had just finished making dinner. As James sat down and glanced at the meal, he erupted into a furious rant about how it didn't meet his standards. He began yelling and slamming the table, berating her and threatening to throw her out if she couldn't cook properly. In his rage, he threw his plate against the wall, leaving Lorraine and me in a state of fear as we watched him. I could feel my whole body trembling. When I finally ate the food, I found nothing wrong with Lorraine's cooking. Over time, James's drinking worsened. With his unemployment and idle days, beer cans accumulated in the living room each morning, which Lorraine had to clean up. I also found myself unable to spend time with my friends as James would harshly criticize me if I was even a minute late coming home from school. At 15, a classmate named Harry confessed his feelings for me and asked me out on a date. Despite my anxiety over James finding out, I was eager to experience a date and explore my feelings as a teenager. So, despite my worries, I agreed to go out with Harry. We met at a local coffee shop after school and spent the afternoon chatting and getting to know each other. That date turned out to be one of the best decisions of my life, as it marked the beginning of our love story. Harry was everything James was not, gentle and kind to everyone, including animals. He would bring me my favorite flowers whenever he could, saving up his pocket money to do so. Having never had a good role model, I didn't expect much, but Harry treated me with the care and respect I had always wanted. James was always a bit suspicious and would question me about whether I was spending time with any boys. I would deny it, silently hoping he wouldn't uncover the truth. Fortunately, not having a phone meant there were no incriminating texts he could discover. Harry and I took great care to keep our relationship private, even avoiding telling our friends to prevent any gossip. Harry understood my fear of James and was willing to keep our relationship a secret. When prom approached, Harry and I decided to attend with our group of friends to avoid drawing any unwanted attention. However, when James learned of my plans to go to prom, he outright forbade it. He dismissed it as a waste of time and refused to buy me a dress. I didn't really care about the dress. I just wanted to enjoy the evening with my friends. I begged him to let me go, reminding him of my good grades and how I had met his expectations. He scolded me, belittling my friendships and insisting that prom was insignificant. Lorraine disagreed and argued with James, believing there was no reason for me to stay home while my peers enjoyed themselves. James insisted that teenagers lacked a sense of right and wrong and that he wouldn't allow me to go out simply to have fun when I could stay home and be safe. Despite my pleas and attempts to explain how important this event was to me, he remained resolute, dismissing my feelings as trivial. He even threatened to lock me out if I tried to sneak out for prom. On the night of the dance, I was the only one who stayed behind, spending the evening crying alone in my room. I was growing increasingly weary of living with James. After high school, it became even harder to see Harry since I wasn't allowed out and didn't have a phone. I asked James for a phone, but he insisted I didn't need one at my age. I argued that I'd be going to college and that everyone had a phone, but he said I'd have to buy one myself if I wanted it. That's when I decided to get a part-time job. Though the pay was modest, it allowed me to earn some money and gain a bit of independence. It also meant I could spend time with Harry without James finding out, using work as an excuse while I met up with him. Eventually, I received the incredible news that I had been accepted into an Ivy League university with a full scholarship. This was a significant accomplishment, as no one from my town had ever achieved it before. James took it upon himself to brag about my success to anyone who would listen, proclaiming how proud he was of me. Despite his constant boasting, he never actually congratulated me personally, instead acting as though my achievement was a reflection of his own success. After receiving my college acceptance, I felt an enormous sense of relief. At last, James had nothing to complain about, as I had fulfilled his greatest dream by securing a spot in a prestigious college with a scholarship. With my job and academic success, he couldn't label me as lazy anymore. His newfound satisfaction led him to agree to buy me a phone and allowed me to use the money I earned from work for college expenses. He even permitted me to hang out with my friends after work. For the first time, I felt like I could enjoy life a bit, just like everyone else. Harry and I knew we'd be separated when we went to college, but we promised to meet up whenever we could. Our intimacy was careful and limited, with both of us taking precautions. A couple of weeks later, I began experiencing unusual symptoms that resembled those of my period, but without actually having it. Being perceptive, I sensed something was wrong with my body, and I found myself craving food at odd hours. Panicking, I told Harry that I needed to take a pregnancy test, and he agreed. I took 3 tests, all of which came back positive. The shock was overwhelming, and I collapsed on the floor, crying uncontrollably. It felt like I was living through one of my worst nightmares. Harry tried to comfort me, but I was trembling with fear. I knew that if James discovered I was pregnant, especially right before college, he would react with unimaginable anger. Harry reassured me that the decision was entirely mine and that he would support me no matter what. He suggested talking to his parents first and then approaching James together to prevent any violent reactions. Given my difficult home situation, Harry was genuinely concerned for my safety. His parents were incredibly understanding. His mother embraced me and comforted me, saying that such things happen to many people and not to worry too much. They agreed to come to my place to help break the news to James. When Lorraine and James were informed of the pregnancy, they were utterly shocked. Lorraine asked me twice if I was certain, and I confirmed with the results from multiple tests. James, however, erupted in anger, accusing me of being a product of his reluctance to adopt children from strangers, citing their unpredictable nature. He hurled a barrage of insults at me, claiming I had ruined my life. Harry's parents tried to calm James down, but he directed his fury at them, blaming them for the situation and appearing ready to physically confront Harry, who sat quietly in the corner. Overcome with emotion, I started crying and told James that I wasn't planning to keep the baby, so he had nothing to worry about. I assured him that everything could return to normal, and I would still go to college as planned. At that point, Lorraine asked to speak with James privately. They left the room while I sat there, crying and anxiously fidgeting. Harry's parents looked at me with sympathy. When Lorraine and James returned, Lorraine's words struck me like a tidal wave. She proposed that we didn't necessarily have to give up the baby, suggesting that I could carry the pregnancy to term and then transfer my parental rights to them. I sat there in stunned silence as Lorraine stressed that the child was a gift from God and urged us not to consider other options. James supported Lorraine's view, suggesting that this arrangement would be ideal, especially since Lorraine was already pregnant herself. His words left me completely bewildered, and I struggled to grasp what he was proposing. James revealed that Lorraine had only recently discovered her pregnancy and had kept it private while processing the news. With my own pregnancy, they now saw an opportunity to raise both children together as siblings. The shock of their suggestion left me speechless, grappling with the gravity of their proposal and the unexpected turn of events. Harry's parents were equally stunned and quickly expressed their disapproval. However, James interrupted, asserting that the decision was not theirs to make, and looked at me expectantly, waiting for my response. Overwhelmed with anxiety, I knew deep down that I couldn't agree to Lorraine and James's proposal. The idea of giving up my child to be raised in an environment reminiscent of my own troubled upbringing was unbearable. Although Lorraine had shown herself to be a caring mother in many ways, I couldn't ignore the fact that she couldn't shield herself from James's behavior, let alone ensure my child's safety. The thought of subjecting my unborn child to the same uncertainty and potential danger was unacceptable. While I cherished the thought of becoming a mother one day, I knew the timing and circumstances were far from ideal. I couldn't bring a child into the world under these conditions, knowing I couldn't guarantee their safety and well-being. I firmly told James that, although I was glad to be gaining a sibling soon, I couldn't proceed with the pregnancy. I was neither mentally nor physically strong enough to handle it. The idea of watching my child grow up with Lorraine and James, while pretending they were just a sibling, was inconceivable. Living a lie and denying my child the truth about their parentage was something I simply couldn't endure. When I shared my decision, Lorraine broke down in tears, expressing her disappointment that I couldn't do this for her despite all the sacrifices she had made for me. James, visibly enraged, got up and began pacing the room. I tried to explain my stance, but they refused to understand. Harry's mother stepped in, supporting my choice and offering to arrange an appointment with a gynecologist to move forward with the procedure. Lorraine's crying intensified, and James started shouting, asking if I was satisfied now that I was causing her so much pain. He then demanded that I pack my things and leave the house. My shock was palpable as James declared he was fed up with me, accusing me of being ungrateful and selfish for not giving them my child. Harry's parents gently urged me to pack up quickly, clearly troubled by James's volatile behavior. I hurried upstairs to gather my important documents, photo albums, and as many clothes as I could. When I came back downstairs, James warned me to take whatever I could carry because he planned to throw out and burn the rest of my belongings the next day. I tried to speak with Lorraine, but she wouldn't even look at me. As I left, James told me I should never come back. I was bewildered and heartbroken, unable to understand what I had done to warrant such ruthless rejection. Harry and his parents generously offered me a place to stay, and I returned to their home. The following days were a blur as they took me to the gynecologist, where we scheduled the necessary procedure. It was a difficult decision for both me and Harry, but given the circumstances, we knew it was the best choice for our future. After the procedure, I spent a few days recovering with Harry by my side, offering unwavering support. He and his parents were incredibly kind and did everything they could to help me through this challenging time. Throughout this ordeal, James and Lorraine never reached out to me. When the day came for me to move into college, I texted James, hoping he might have forgiven me by then. Instead, he responded with harsh words, calling me a failure and a disappointment and accusing me of turning into a prostitute. He said he didn't want his biological child to end up like me. His cruel message cut me deeply, and I cried for hours. They had been the only parents I knew, and now, with their own children on the way, they had severed ties with me. My college years were challenging but ultimately rewarding. I juggled a part-time job with my studies, working hard to maintain my grades. It was tough, but I was determined to succeed. Fortunately, Harry kept his promise and supported me throughout. He would visit me at college whenever he could, and his constant encouragement helped me through the rough patches. During holidays, his parents often invited me to spend time with them, and they began to feel like family to me. I graduated with honors, achieving the distinction of KL, and Harry and his parents were there to celebrate my graduation. I secured a good job in my field, and it was a proud moment knowing all my hard work had paid off. Harry and I eventually moved in together, and our relationship grew stronger with time. We supported each other through life's ups and downs, and after several years, we decided to get married. Our wedding was a beautiful celebration of our love and commitment, surrounded by our closest friends and family. I didn't even consider inviting James and Lorraine to the wedding. As a married couple, Harry and I have continued to build our life together. Recently, we took a significant step by buying a new house and renting out our old one. Our new home has become a cozy haven where we create new memories and plan for the future. We bought the new place to be closer to Harry's aging parents, who have become like family to me as well. I want to be there for them in any way I can. It's been almost 20 years since James and Lorraine kicked me out, and I barely remember them now. Over the years, I haven't dwelled on them much, though I do recall spending my first year of college grieving their absence. By my second year, I resolved to forge a new life for myself, free from their rejection. It was painful. And building this life on my own took immense strength. They've never reached out to me and I haven't felt the need to check in on them either. Throughout these years, Harry has been my steadfast companion and partner in every sense. Although we never had children, our two beloved dogs have brought us immense joy. We visit Harry's parents every other weekend and frequently enjoy trips and discovering new restaurants together. Looking back, I feel that my life has turned out well, and I wish I could embrace my 17-year-old self and reassure her about her future. Recently, I received a friend request on Facebook from someone named Matt with a surname that seemed familiar. When I checked his profile, I was taken aback by how much he resembled James. I accepted his request and he sent me a greeting. I replied, and he soon asked if I knew anyone named James and Lorraine. My heart raced as I realized he was their son. Nervous yet determined to be honest, I confirmed that I knew them since they had adopted me when I was 5. Matt expressed a strong desire to talk if I was comfortable, so I agreed and gave him my number. When he called, the conversation started off awkwardly, but Matt soon shared that he had always known about a child his parents had before him because he had seen my pictures in the family photo album. Whenever he asked about it, his parents would dodge the question. He had been searching for me for a long time, having learned my name from our hometown, and he had recently stumbled upon my profile by chance. His sole reason for reaching out was to uncover the truth. As I recounted the painful events of my past, including how his parents had asked me to give up my child and then expelled me when I refused, I could feel the weight of the emotions. I described their absence from my life over the years and how I had managed to cope thanks to the support of my husband's parents. The conversation was emotionally charged, and I revealed long-buried feelings. Matt's voice conveyed shock and disbelief as he absorbed my account. After a period of silence, he told me he had no idea his parents had treated me so cruelly. He had always believed their story that I had left on my own accord. He thanked me sincerely for my honesty and apologized on behalf of his parents, expressing regret for the pain they had caused me. Since our conversation, I've felt grateful for Matt's effort to reach out and his understanding, which has brought me some comfort and validation. However, I worry about how James and Lorraine will react when they learn that I've shared the truth with Matt. Did I make the right choice in revealing everything, or would it have been better to keep silent? Update 1. I wanted to share that my initial concerns were valid. Within just 24 hours of Matt reaching out to me, Lorraine and James began bombarding me with calls and texts. Since I've kept the same number all these years, it was relatively easy for them to find me. Their messages have been filled with anger and accusations, mostly centered around why I disclosed family secrets to Matt. James's message, in particular, was harsh, insisting I should have kept quiet as I had for years and not interfered between him and his son. Overwhelmed and unsure of how to handle the situation, I've been dodging their calls and messages, uncertain of the best way to address this unexpected confrontation. Update 2. I informed Harry about the situation. He was unaware of Matt's outreach and, upon learning that I had shared our past, he felt I shouldn't have done so. His concern wasn't about the truth being wrong but rather that James was clearly unstable and that this revelation would only stir up unnecessary drama in our lives. I also spoke with Matt, who told me he confronted James and Lorraine after our discussion. They attempted to deny everything, labeling me as a liar and accusing me of using them until I could escape to college. Despite their claims, Matt didn't believe them and told them to stay away from his family. He also informed them he would be cutting them off financially. Matt revealed that he and his wife had recently adopted twins, but James and Lorraine had refused to visit them, which had made Matt question their behavior. After learning about my past, Matt understood why they might have been unhappy with his adoption. He assured me he would ask them to leave us alone and extended an invitation for me to visit his twins whenever I could. He expressed a desire to get to know me better, given our sibling connection. I'm touched by his kindness and might take him up on his offer to visit his family with Harry. Update 3. It's been 7 months since my last update, and for those asking, here's what's new. I decided to block James and Lorraine from all communication channels, which has stopped their threatening messages. Matt intervened and spoke to them, so they had no choice but to back off. Harry and I have visited Matt and his wife at least 4 times over the past few months. Each visit has been warm and welcoming, and we've spent hours reconnecting, sharing stories, and bonding over our childhoods. I've also had the joy of spending time with Matt's twins, who are delightful. I'm deeply grateful that Matt reached out and the connection with him and his family has been a source of healing and joy for me. After discovering my husband's autism and kitty food preference, I faced deceit and marital stress, leading to my decision to divorce. Well, it's been a lot longer than the 1-week update I promised. I could make excuses but I won't. For those of you who don't want to read my original post, I asked for help with my husband's food preference issues and through talking with many people on here and, ultimately, his mother, it was revealed that he was diagnosed with autism as a child. Some of the comments on my original post were not so kind. I got a lot of accusations that still hurt me. Some just make me angry, particularly the person who commented simply, "Please don't bully him. He's my goddamn husband. Not a schoolyard friend, not a sibling, not a child. Infantilizing him doesn't help his case at all." Moving on. I was very upset as he had never mentioned anything to me. We've discussed all sorts of medical issues together, but his diagnosis never came up. I want to stress this. This isn't a matter of me not wanting to be married to an autistic man. This is a matter of my husband keeping something important from me and causing me a great deal of stress that could have been avoided if I was aware of his diagnosis. For example, I continuously pushed him to try new foods or attend concerts or visit loud amusement parks. I knew he wasn't particularly thrilled about any of those things, but they are all very normal couple activities that I wanted us to experience together. Had I been aware of his autism, I would have had a better understanding of how negatively these things affected him. And made more of an effort to integrate things he liked with things I liked, maybe a smaller local band, or a craft fair instead of an amusement park. Anyways. That's the backstory. Read below for the update. Update. I confronted him about my conversation with his mother the night before our counseling appointment. I made sure to bring it up casually so I didn't become angry again. He tried to brush me off at first, saying he didn't know what I was talking about. After talking for a bit, he eventually confessed that he not only knew of the diagnosis but deliberately kept it from me. He said I was his dream and he didn't want to do anything to ruin our perfect relationship. I explained how him keeping this from me hurt me. I explained how I could have been there to support him instead of feeling like he needed to hide. He said he wasn't ashamed of it at all. He explained that it's just not something that affects him anymore. I, again, explained how it affects me, but he didn't seem to care. I didn't show him the post I made, but I used some of the advice from you all to try to explain why his autism really does in fact still affect his life. We went to bed upset. The next day he acted like nothing happened. We ate breakfast, he had chicken nuggets, and went about our day. I kept expecting him to bring it up, but he never did. I didn't have the nerve to bring it up again until later at the marriage counselor's office. I spoke to the counselor so as not to seem accusing and explained that this was an issue that bothered me. My husband actually laughed and said he assumed I'd gotten over it by now. When I explained that no, I really hadn't, he got angry with me and stormed out. The counselor tried to mediate, but it wasn't much use as my husband went to wait in the car. I was worried he'd leave without me, so I cut the meeting short. Our ride home was quiet. It wasn't until we got home that I said I was worried he was keeping other things from me too. He said he'd been reading online about how women can't understand autism and therefore he didn't think it was important to tell me about it. I said that was the weakest excuse I'd ever heard. He then said that I'd leave him if I knew. I said if I left him it'd be because he's a liar. Apparently he told all of our mutual friends that he'd just been diagnosed with autism and I was considering leaving him because of it. Now many of our friends won't talk to me and act very cold when we run into each other in public. I don't know what else he's told them, but I think he told someone I cheated on him as a fake account has been commenting horrible things about me and my supposed sexual habits on all of my Instagram posts. I keep reporting them, but then it seems like another just pops up in its place. I haven't decided if divorce is the right path. I know he's been browsing incel and other bitter male-centric websites. One of his friends is a self-described incel, so I'm even more convinced that this isn't the man I married. I'm mostly just confused. I've been avoiding him at home and it feels like more of a roommate situation at this point. He doesn't really leave his den until it's time for work, and then he's back in the den until bed. It seems like everything is messed up, just from me wanting to help. I don't even know what to expect at this point, much less how to move on from here. Edit. There are so many more comments than I anticipated. I'm trying to at least read through most of them, although I think I'm past my emotional ability to reply. I'm really shocked at how overwhelmingly supportive people are. Thank you. I'm going to be discussing divorce with a lawyer. I don't know how to bring it up with him, but I'm past the point of caring. You're all right. I dread coming home to him in the evenings. I dread if he will miraculously want to talk. This isn't healthy for either of us. At the very least, some time apart would be good. That's all for now. I don't think I'll update past this as I'm already uncomfortable with how quickly this blew up. But I will be living elsewhere by the end of the month. My wife will not shut up and I'm not sure I can take it that much longer. Is it possible for that to be a reason to leave? I'm not sure if I should have posted this on AITA instead. But here goes. My wife will not shut up. I'm not talking about your usual chatty Kathy. I mean she, almost literally, will not shut up. She will talk continuously from the moment she knows I am within earshot. Not just in the same room. I mean, as soon as it's reasonable to assume that I can hear her. She will not stop talking until I'm gone, and sometimes not even then. On more than one occasion, I've gone into the bathroom, turned on the loud exhaust fan, taken a leisurely dump, and then returned to hear her cheerfully engaged in the same conversation she was enjoying before I went in. She also refuses to use the exhaust fan while she's in the restroom because it would prevent her from being heard. So I get to hear all the bathroom noises on top of whatever Homeric epic about her friend's cousin's girlfriend's hairdresser she's blathering on about. I once drove from Tampa, Florida to Chicago, Illinois with her, before we were married. I'm such an idiot. Without saying more than 10 sentences. She did not stop talking the entire way. The entire way. Television onto a show I like? Pfft, that's not a problem. She'll happily turn the volume down so it doesn't get in the way. Having sex? That's the perfect time to tell me about how Olivia Newton-John still has the leather pants she wore in Grease and she, brace yourself, still fits in them, really. Needless to say, we don't go to the movies. Ever. I've been shushed out of too many theaters. I get it. She grew up in a huge Italian Catholic family in the Bronx. If you don't talk loud and constantly, you don't get to talk at all. I, on the other hand, grew up in a Scandinavian family with 2 children. To this day, I'm not sure we ever had a conversation in our house. I actually often wonder if that's what made me attractive to her. I was taught to politely listen to people and then wait for them to finish before replying. She never finishes, or takes a breath it sometimes seems. So to her I'm paying rapt attention to her no matter how much she talks. That's not true though. Another difference between people of Swedish heritage is that we don't use filler words for acknowledgement. Other than the Minnesota nah, useful on every occasion, we're pretty much silent when we listen to others. No or yeah or OMG needed. A nod of the head every 10 minutes or so is all you need to convey your attentiveness. I think it has a lot to with living in the frigid north. You keep your mouth open as much as my wife does, and your teeth are going to shatter from the cold. To her, that's like being in the room with a dead person. She's always stopping to ask, are you even listening? Or say, you never pay attention to me. Or even quiz me with, what did I just say? I've become an expert at storing the last 2 to 4 words she says and parroting them back at her. She'll be like, blah blah blah. And then she told him she wasn't taking that kind of crap anymore. And I'll go, that kind of crap. As if I had any idea what kind of crap it was or who it was that wouldn't take it anymore. And she'll say yeah, and think I've been paying attention the whole time. I joke about it a lot, but it's actually getting to the point where it's a problem. Our son is 7 years old, and he has developed a pronounced stutter because she interrupts him constantly. Growing up in her house, if anyone paused even for a millisecond, that was grounds for talking over them. And you talked loud so they didn't finish. My son apparently inherited some of my less staccato speech patterns, and she basically just uses that to interrupt and take over the conversation. It got so bad that he started automatically stopping and restarting words, even when not being interrupted. I didn't know that was considered a stutter until we went to one of those parent-teacher night things, and a teacher listened to wife and then turned to me and said, well, at least now I know why Josh has a stutter. Just like that. She's failed at least one job interview because of this. I know because I lined it up with a business acquaintance myself. He called me up and said sorry, but he just couldn't take being in the same room with her because she wouldn't stop talking. We rarely are invited for a second couple's date. She monopolizes the conversation every time we go out with other people. Who wants more than one does of that? You're probably wondering, well, have you told her about this? Yes. Many times. Sometimes jokingly. Sometimes with utter seriousness. The reactions vary from anger, talks louder, higher, faster, and uses lots more swear words, to tears. She's the only person I know who can carry on a totally unrelated conversation while sobbing hysterically. The one thing that doesn't happen is her talking any less. I try not to let it get to me. She's a very affectionate woman. Loves me to death. Mother of my child. Pretty as the day we met, prettier even. We still get plenty of alone time. Granted, she won't shut up while we're doing it, but I'm pretty busy so I don't really notice as much. But it does get to me. It's selfish and shows a lack of self-awareness. There's a time and a place for enthusiastic conversation, and they're not always and everywhere. I know the answer to the problem. I have to talk back. In effect, the only thing that possibly could shut her up is for me to do the same thing as she does. I would have to interrupt at the slightest pause. I would have to talk louder, yelling if necessary, when she tries to interrupt me. I would have to learn to use Italian hand gestures to emphasize my points and chop off her objections. But I'm not Italian. I'm a waspy pale dude who grew up in a household that would have made a mortuary sound like a middle school cafeteria. 12 years of this has finally pushed me to the brink. I'm not sure I can take it that much longer. I'm just not sure if I could get a word in to tell the judge why I'm there in his divorce court. My wife wouldn't let me. TL.dr. Wife will not shut up. Is that reasonable grounds for leaving her? Edit, obligatory Reddit, OMG, I had no idea this would blow up. Which is true, I thought maybe a couple of people would just call me an asshole and that would be it. But RIP, inbox. It was nice to know you. So in the interest of not replying to every comment, I will try to address some of the common ones and answer some of the questions I saw popping up multiple times. Also thanks for the, often hilarious, advice. Q1. Is this BS? Implied. A1. No, it's all mostly true. I admit to some embellishment for dramatic comedic effect though. The bit about the leather pants is representative, not an actual quote. Not from sexy times anyway. She probably mentioned it at some point though. Q2. Why didn't you run away screaming before you got married? Sub-question. Was OP's wife hot? A2. Yes, she is hot, and funny, and vivacious. Also, I really was a Nordic silent bear. Thanks, you/Sarah_Dragonfire, my wife drew me out of my shell. And if I'm brutally honest with myself, when you're young and getting laid on the regular, a lot of things don't seem all that terrible. Damn you penis, this is all your fault. Q3. Did your kid really develop a stutter because of this? A3. Medically speaking, I cannot state this with 100% certainty. The cause was never formally diagnosed. However, I watched it happen firsthand. I'm not a qualified speech therapist, but I think it was a reasonable conclusion to draw based on the observations I made. I'd welcome a dissenting opinion from an actual professional though, if only to salve my conscience. Which leads to, Q4. Aren't you really the one responsible for your kid's stutter? After all, you did nothing to stop it. A4. Guilty. And I feel utterly like shit about it all the time. For the record, I did bring it up lots of times, even to the point of getting into arguments about it and speaking harshly to my wife when she interrupted my son. But I think by the time I realized it was happening, most of the damage was done. And anything I could do was more expressing my anger about it than actually making an effective change. All the rest of this weirdly long post is just ranting. If there's an actual justification for leaving, this is it, and I'm deathly afraid that she'll get full custody and just make it worse or even irreparable. Q5. Is it because she's, pick one, OCD, insecure, autistic, mentally ill? A5. I don't think so, although I've always sensed an overwhelming need for attention. I see it in her family dynamic, in that all of her many siblings were in constant competition for their parents' attention and affection. Q6. Have you tried counseling? A6. No, probably should have, but I know her well enough that even mentioning it would shatter her. It's bizarre that I can't bring myself to do a lot of things people have suggested, and believe me, I've probably thought of all of them, because they just seem too cruel to me. And yet, I'm seriously considering divorce. I realize the contradiction there. I feel unsafe because my autistic neighbor exhibits strange behavior. He constantly follows me when I take my dog outside at night. Hi all, I've never posted here before, but I've been thinking about writing this for a while now, since I'm really starting to feel uncomfortable and could really use some advice for who to contact and what to do. I 23F live in student housing as a graduate student. I have my own apartment in a small multifamily complex. There are about 4 other students there, one of which I will refer to as S, 45M. S has autism. I know these terms are outdated, but for context, his autism is rather profound, and he has lots of social difficulties and stims in conversation. I previously haven't had any real difficulties interacting with him, especially since I used to be an instructor for children with autism and am used to handling various social behaviors from people on the spectrum. But in the past couple of months, his behavior towards me has changed, and I'm at a loss for what to do. I take my dog out at various times throughout the night to relieve herself. There is only one way out of the complex, and I have to pass by S's apartment in order to do this. But after living here for about 6 months, I didn't have any trouble with this. Sometimes, he'd come out to say hi, and I'd let him pet my dog. But this was always at an appropriate time. About a month and a half ago, things started to get weird when I took my dog out at 4:30 a.m., which isn't unusual, and saw him peeking at me through the window. He then opened the door and came outside to sit down and pet my dog. She started barking and I politely told him that I can't have her barking at this time of night and took her inside. I'll admit I felt a bit uncomfortable with him coming out so late at night. After all, he is a large older man and I'm a very small female. For the next month, I would notice S lingering outside the apartments a lot more often. I found it disconcerting when he was doing this late at night. My partner, 20F, came to visit for a month, and while she was there, his behavior got even stranger. Nearly every time I took my dog outside, he would open his door and come out to talk to me, which made me uncomfortable because it seemed he was actively watching for me. But when I asked my partner to come out with me, he would open the door, see her with me, and then close the door without a word. It got to the point where I no longer wanted to take my dog out alone and eventually put up a security camera for peace of mind. The day my security package was actually delivered, my partner was up having a school Zoom meeting in my kitchen, while I slept. Apparently, during the meeting, she started to hear him yell my name outside my door, followed by, "Package." And she ignored it, but it went on for several minutes. This made me really nervous to hear about, and after I put the camera up, the behavior slowed. But the other day, my partner went back to her home state again, and S's behavior changed again. He came up to me on the way back from doing laundry in our shared laundry room and asked me if I was a lesbian. I was kind of taken aback, but figured since he has autism, he doesn't really understand if a question is inappropriate. But 2 days later, it got worse. I was taking my garbage out, and there's a small alley between our apartments and the dumpsters. There is only one way in or out. It was nearly midnight and I checked the cameras first to ensure I was alone before going out, but when I turned around, he was standing in the alley, nearly blocking my way out. He looked on the verge of tears. I awkwardly said hi and stepped around him so I wouldn't be cornered in the alley, and he started confessing a variety of emotional and family problems to me. I could see he was having a hard time, so I was polite and answered him and advised him to see a therapist if he needed someone to talk to. He then said something odd to me about not having a partner and how he wanted one really badly, not to put me on the spot, and mentioned he knew about my current partner. Of course, now I think I see why he's been acting so strange towards me. Here's the thing though. He's still following me outside when I take my dog out, and sometimes will just stand there quietly and watch if I'm not engaging with the conversations he's trying to start. I have started carrying pepper spray and will admit I'm feeling very concerned for my safety. My mom says it's a harmless crush and I should just politely tell him to stop cornering me, but I don't know how to safely have this conversation, just in case I may actually be in danger, and I don't feel comfortable doing so. Any advice on what I should tell him to make him understand his behavior is making me feel unsafe. Should I even tell him? Even though he has autism, I feel like he should know not to corner me in an alley at midnight. My school does not have many people working during the summer, and I'm not sure who I should report this to, if I do. Several people close to me who have met him, including someone who is also on the autism spectrum, are telling me to not confront him and just report this behavior. But again, my parents just say his autism is making it difficult to understand that his sudden change in behavior is off-putting, and he's getting over a harmless crush. Either way, I feel unsafe at times, and I want to hear some advice from you guys as to what I should do. Advice from anyone on the spectrum would be especially appreciated, since I want to know if maybe I'm just misinterpreting his challenged social skills as something more concerning. Thank you so much. Update. Thank you all for the replies. You guys are so helpful and have helped me realize the danger I'm in. I want to believe this is the best case scenario, where he just doesn't realize his behavior is inappropriate. Logically, this is the most likely case, but I have to base my actions around a worst case scenario. My gut says something is very wrong. You guys are right that I need to listen to that. My safety has to take priority over his feelings, and I will be doing everything I can to avoid interactions with him. This weekend, he hasn't come up to me directly. He has, however, been coming outside at night after 2:30 a.m., searching the yard where I usually take my dog, and then going straight back inside, 2 nights in a row now, as caught multiple times by my camera. Don't know why else he would do this other than to look for me, and this makes me especially unnerved that he's only attempting that approach at night now, as if he's trying to catch me off guard. I called my parents and broke down crying after reading all the comments you guys left in this thread, and they're finally taking me seriously. My mom purchased me a stun gun, which I will not be going outside without. I'm also not leaving the house alone anymore at all, not even to take the trash out. My dog will be accompanying me for everything. I didn't mention it in my previous post, but my dog is a pit bull, and even though she's the sweetest and has never once been aggressive, she is fiercely loyal, and I believe she could do some serious damage if someone attacked me. I also put in contact alarms for my windows and got a better deadbolt for my door, and my partner has also offered to come stay with me to help keep me safe. He has never approached me when I'm not alone. So for everyone who's been concerned for my safety, thank you, and I hope that shows I'm taking serious steps to keep safe. This morning, I submitted a report to the school and explained the situation in depth, including sending them footage from my security camera of him following me and my dog outside late at night. I requested they keep my report anonymous. I asked them to do a mental welfare check on him and connect him with counseling resources. And as some of you have suggested, I'm asking them to call and remind him not to approach people late at night while they're on their own. Those were my only specific requests, but I told them I need intervention, and I need it now. I got a call back within a few hours and learned my case was fortunately assigned to a man who's worked with autistic adults for years prior to transferring to work at the university, so he's very understanding of the situation and why it's so complex, and will be working on connecting us with resources for his mental health and to point out which behaviors are appropriate, inappropriate. I'm hoping this is the best case scenario, and that this intervention will be positive. If it's not, however, then I will be asking the housing department to temporarily move me. I feel much better with the help and communication I'm getting from the school, but I will continue to treat this like I'm in very real danger, because I might be. This post blew up, so I will update it if something more substantial happens. But for now, the situation is reported and you can assume no news is good news. My ex-girlfriend committed suicide. I am a firefighter and had to find her body. It's been a bit over 6 months since I posted that story and I want to give you a quick update on my life. I'm on mobile, so I apologize if it makes it harder to read. TLDR, my ex-girlfriend got into an abusive relationship with a drug addict. She was dealing with depression for a while and killed herself. I am a firefighter in NJ, but go to school in NH. I received the call and conducted research to find her. I drove back down to help with the search. We found her body in the woods and she wrote me a suicide note. Where I left off was me upset about the situation and upset with the world, and most importantly, upset with myself. I was in a dark place for a while after that. I drank and shunned out everyone but my friends who were helping me. For a good amount of time I distanced myself from any girl who I met. The funeral wasn't long after and Jim didn't even show up. I'm not sure if he was invited, but it just shows the type of guy he is. I didn't feel comfortable with dating anyone, let alone even hooking up with them. It felt wrong and I was scared I would get close to someone and lose them again. The depression I felt was destructive. My chief reached out to me not long after because I never told him how I knew her. He asked me to see a therapist and that he can set up a visit at the firehouse. I was in NH, so I told him I'll see my college counseling center and send him confirmation. I lied, I sent him a fake email and he believed me. I had this notion that I don't need help because I help people. After 3 months I was still depressed, but I started to talk to girls again. I met this really nice girl named Sarah. We talked and even hooked up a couple times. After a month and a half she asked if we could start dating. I told her I couldn't. I told her my story and said I don't feel comfortable being close with anyone. She took it well and still wanted to talk, but I couldn't anymore. I felt as if she crossed a line in my mind and we couldn't go back. I didn't want to be close with anyone like that again. Fast forward another month, my friend Kelsey asked if I wanted to go to her sorority formal with one of her friends. I accepted and that's when I met Kristen. Kristen was perfect, she was really sweet and a great date. We ended up talking for a while and this time I decided it was time to be proactive. I opened up to her about what happened to me and I told her I want to take it very slow. She completely understood. Instead of scaring her off, she helped me more than anyone has ever had. She convinced me that avoiding therapy is a bad move, and that there is no shame in seeking counseling. So I made an appointment and went. The therapist told me about a suicide prevention org on campus that I should join and tell my story. I joined them and they had suicide prevention events where people tell their stories to help others. I did my first story and Kristen and a bunch of my friends went to support me. It was one of the most touching moments of my life standing up on that stage and seeing all those people. I continued doing these events and Kristen went to every single one. After 6 months I told her I'm ready to start dating, but to understand that I may be distant at first because I'm not used to this. She understood. We've been together for 8 months and she's amazing. She's the nicest and most supportive person I've ever met. Every time I'm in NJ I go to Lydia's house and support her mom. On Christmas I got a crew to come to her house and deliver presents to her mom's boyfriend's autistic son and her nephews. The way I was able to get relief for my pain was helping others. And if it wasn't for Kristen I wouldn't have the guidance to do it. I slapped my mother-in-law. My husband scolded me and told me that I am not allowed to do that to his mother. She and he are both racists. Hi Reddit. I made this throwaway because I need some help to know if I should apologize to my husband because yesterday I slapped my mother-in-law in front of him. For context, my husband is white and I am mixed. My mom is Puerto Rican and my dad is white. My mom has very dark skin and my dad is pretty fair. I'm pretty white passing, which for those who don't know, means you can't really tell that I'm Latina unless I tell you. A running for mother-in-law joke is that melanin skips a generation because my maternal grandpa is also very fair but my maternal great-grandma is very brown. With that out of the way, I'll get into my situation. I have been with my husband for 7 years, married for 5. We have a 3-year-old little girl who is the light of my life. When she was born, she had a head full of dark brown curls, dark brown eyes and a fairly olive complexion. She looks like me when I get tan. You can definitely tell she's part Latino. Despite knowing all this, my mother-in-law has gotten it into her head that my daughter isn't my husband. She's been telling anyone who will listen that I must have had an affair because there's no way her son's child could be that color. Yeah, how nice. My mother-in-law has always been standoffish with me. She never made a big effort to get to know me and was always more polite than anything else. Mother-in-law has made some offhanded comments before about Latinos, but husband would brush them off because she's from another time. I wanted to write off her behavior as just her not being educated enough. I realize now that was my mistake because it gave her the okay to keep going. When my husband and I heard from my sister-in-law that mother-in-law was saying this, we invited her over to talk about this. I was really hoping we'd be able to fix this. However, what happened was my mother-in-law going on a rant for like 15 minutes. It consisted of her outing herself as a racist. Saying she knew girls like me couldn't control themselves, that she knew from the start what would happen. The nerve I had to pass my daughter off as her also some very colorful slurs. Husband and I were frozen in shock because she hadn't even stepped into the house and was just screeching on our doorstep. What snapped me out of it was when she started to insult my mom, saying she probably did the same to my dad. I don't know what came over me next. I've never hit someone before. But I ended up smacking her so hard her glasses fell off. That's what got my husband to start talking. Or rather yelling at his mother and me for acting this way while mother-in-law started to wail. Yes, I shouldn't have hit her, I know. That's wrong. But hearing him imply I was in the wrong the same way mother-in-law made me more angry. I told him he's just as much a racist as his mom if he was trying to make me out to be as bad as her. I got my keys from inside the house while he was trying to calm his mom down and left. I drove to a hotel and spent the night there. Now it's the afternoon and I haven't left the hotel room since checking in. Husband and several other friends and Faye mother-in-law have been trying to reach me. I only replied to my sister-in-law to tell her I'm safe at a hotel and asked her to not tell my husband what hotel I'm at. Guilt is starting to sink in and I'm questioning everything. Like, did I allow my mother-in-law to do this? Did I showcase behavior that made her think I was cheating? Does my husband think I cheated and that's why mother-in-law has this in her head? And of course, should I be apologizing to my husband for hitting my mother-in-law? I know violence is wrong and I hate making excuses, but I just couldn't handle someone talking about my mother-in-law that way. So Redditors, should I be apologizing to my husband? How do we get through this? Any and all advice is appreciated. Edit, no. My daughter was not at the house. We sent her to have a weekend sleepover with my sister's mother-in-law. I'll be picking her up tomorrow afternoon. Edit 2, I have posted an update you can find on my page. Relevant comments. Constant Pen 4742. I would be scared to raise my daughter with that mother-in-law. I would do paternity just to shut down any ideas with the husband but your marriage just took a hit and if he doesn't step up, it would be difficult to move on. OP answer, this is what I'm most afraid of. She's a kind of matriarch, so if we were to go NC, it would be with the rest of the Faye mother-in-law too. However, I don't want my daughter in the range of an environment where she can be subjected to passing and direct comments. I don't want her to grow up thinking she's less because of her heritage. Update 1, thank you to everyone who gave very insightful advice. I spent quite a bit reflecting and was able to get an emergency meeting with my therapist this morning. I only have my sister here as my parents moved back to Puerto Rico to be with my grandparents 5 years ago. Some questions I want to answer real quick. How old are we? My husband is 28 and I just celebrated my 30th birthday. We met when he was 21 and I was 23. Where was my daughter? I sent her to my sister's on Friday for a weekend sleepover with my sister's mother-in-law. I picked her up Monday afternoon and we had a little mommy-daughter time going to her favorite place, Costco. Yes, my 3-year-old loves Costco. We got home around 7 after we had dinner. My husband was waiting and I told him we'd talk after kiddo went to bed. When she was for certain asleep, we sat and had a long conversation not just about the fight and his mother, but also race and culture. I saw how my Faye mother-in-law was treated based on skin color and while my husband understands racism, he admitted to never really grasping the complexities, especially colorism. A lot of you jumped to me taking my daughter and leaving or telling me he'd leave me. Sorry to disappoint, but no, we're not getting a divorce or anything of the sort. He apologized to me for not standing up for me before and then, acknowledging he didn't want to think of his mother in a racist light. I also apologized for hitting her because in the end, no, it doesn't help us. He did forgive me and said if it wasn't his mom saying it, he'd probably slap them too. We will be going to a marriage counselor, we decided, hoping to find one that specializes in interracial marriage. Our daughter is going to face challenges in the future because of her race. It's sad to say, but unfortunately racism is still alive and we want to know how to protect her and uplift her so she does not feel ashamed of her heritage. We've made the decision to go no contact with her and any people who try to bridge communication between us and her. She will have no contact with my daughter unless it's years down the road and she shows significant changes in her behavior. My husband will be driving to her house tomorrow to inform her of our decision. I'd consider a paternity test and DNA test, but only if mother-in-law pays. I don't want to entertain this on my own dime. We've also decided to not make any public posts regarding this. If people want to believe her story, that is on them, not us. My husband knows our baby is his. The irony is she looks more like him than me. Her curls are even from him. I do hope this is my last update. If anything else happens, I might come back. Thank you again to everyone who gave valuable advice. I am sad my daughter won't have a grandmother in the States, but it's more reason for us to plan trips to PR. Relevant comments. Icy_spinach_48. You dealt with this very well. People on here are too quick to suggest divorce over every problem they read about. Well done to both of you for tackling it maturely. I wish you both the very best for the future update. Hello everyone. I think I jinxed myself by saying in my first update, I hope this will be my last post, because unfortunately, for a lack of a better term, shit continues to hit the fan. For those of you saying I should be arrested for slapping my mother-in-law, I hate to disappoint, but she is not pressing charges. This is all thanks to my husband who said he'd expose my father-in-law's various affairs. Yes, it turns out that my father-in-law cheated numerous times on my mother-in-law until his death 2 years ago. According to hubby, he was paying for sexual favors even on his deathbed. This is deeply disturbing because father-in-law and mother-in-law appeared to have a loving marriage. Apparently, that was just for show. I can't even begin to imagine how hubby is feeling. We talked about it and he said it's something he felt deep shame for keeping from me, but also shame because his parents' marriage wasn't at all what they pretended it was. Husband and I are still looking for a couples therapist who specializes in interracial marriage. Husband is also looking for a therapist of his own after the conversation with mother-in-law opened his eyes to a lot of other traumas and issues he feels haven't been properly worked through. I'm so proud of him for taking these steps. Now on to how the conversation on Wednesday went, which is of course why I made this update to continue to vent. As I said in my first update, husband went over to mother-in-law's house to inform her that her behavior is unacceptable and will be going no contact for the foreseeable future. Mother-in-law didn't take this well. The irony is that she told husband that he couldn't keep her from her only grandchild. Funny because she spent the week claiming our daughter wasn't his. She threw some colorful insults at me, claiming he was never like this before he met me and that this was all my idea to hide my apparent affair. In response, husband said if she's so certain that I'm cheating and that our daughter isn't his, she can pay for a paternity test and a PI to find my affair partner. You know, an affair partner that doesn't exist. Husband says mother-in-law's face turned a comical shade of red and he swears there was steam coming from her ears. This is when mother-in-law said she'd press charges and husband said he'd just tell everyone about father-in-law's serial cheating. Mother-in-law apparently burst into tears then, got down on her knees, wailing he couldn't leave her. Hubby just pushed her off and left. I had already blocked her number so she couldn't contact me, but she blew up husband's phone till he came home and he blocked her. Husband is going to be sending her an email, reiterating what he said about NC, and until she proves she's gotten help, understands she was wrong, and apologizes, she won't be seeing any of us. Both of my husband's sisters called us to get the scope of the problem and agreed to set the record straight with anyone who tries to get a hold of us for mother-in-law or tries to echo her conspiracy theories. Anyone who wants to back her up can crowdfund for a paternity test and private investigator. We've spent too long building up our finances to waste them on the ravings of a mad woman. Husband and I did read comments on the posts. I did tell him about it and show him, and we both thank you for the support and helpful comments. Husband has a special message for those doubting me and saying I should get arrested, get fucked incel. I love this man so much and I'm so lucky to call him my husband and the father of my little girl. We'll be celebrating mother-in-law being out of our lives by taking our daughter out to Texas Roadhouse, eating an ungodly amount of rolls, and seeing Despicable Me 4. Wishing everyone love and thank you again for all the support. Edit. I forgot to add this too, but she also threatened grandparents' rights on the grounds that I endangered my daughter by taking the medication I use for my autoimmune disease during pregnancy. We doubt she'll actually go forward with that, but we will consult a lawyer regardless. Relevant comments. Do Coffee 6106. It sounds like you and your husband have been through an incredibly challenging and emotional time. It's great to hear that you're both taking steps to address the situation with professional help and that you have a support system in place. OP answer, thank you. I feel equally blessed that his two sisters support our decision to go NC and won't be trying to defend or speak on mother-in-law's behalf. Snoowords 4839. Look up emotional incest. Mother-in-law needs therapy to stop trying to make your husband take the place of father-in-law. Start that fuck you binder. She may call Child Protective Services and tons of other problems. Make sure she isn't on any pickup list for your child. Most states, grandparent rights go nowhere when both parents are married. Cameras and documents. OP answer, thank you for saying the pickup list for daycare. Even though she's never picked her up before, I'm realizing that's a scenario and will be letting her daycare know. Gwynison. This is what I'm most afraid of. She's a kind of matriarch. So if we were to go NC, it would be with the rest of the family too. I'm glad OP and her husband appear to have decided this doesn't matter, because it doesn't. The mother-in-law only remains the matriarch who can dictate what the rest of the family do, cut off OP and husband over their no contact, if they agree with and allow her to do so. And as it seems so far, his own siblings are not going to do that. If they did, well then they're just awful racists like the mother-in-law, or at best enablers of it. So no big loss if they choose to ban them from the family, right? I asked my friend to be friend with benefits and now she won't talk to me. I'm worried I ruined our friendship and don't know how to fix this. I met this girl 2 years ago as my lab partner for one of my classes. We became friends, eating dinner together after class and studying together. We've continued to take the same classes, but I don't see her as often one-on-one because we joined an informal study group with other people from our class. Recently, she's been more open than usual, getting closer to me when we're working on a problem together and being more chatty, flirty. She and I are both single and have been for a while. I thought that she was interested in me and I decided to take a shot in the dark. I pulled her aside after a study session last week and once everyone else had left I brought up how we're both single and asked if she wanted to be friends with benefits. She asked what I meant and I said that we could hook up sometimes and otherwise keep things the same and still be friends. She said that she really isn't interested in that and that she doesn't see me that way. I just said, oh, okay, see you tomorrow then, and left. I'm hurt that I got rejected, but at the time I was still glad that I'd been brave enough to go through with it. I knew it was going to be awkward with her for a few days, but it's been a lot worse than that. At the study sessions she sits at the other side of the table from where she used to. She only works with other people in the group and doesn't even glance at me except if I directly ask her a question. Yesterday, I tried to walk alongside her as she left the study session and said, "Hey, I haven't seen you in a while, how's it going?" She said that she didn't want to talk and that she feels weird about me. I left her alone after that, but I'm crushed. I understand why she's mad at me and I know it's all my fault. I was incredibly stupid and I don't know if I can undo what I did. I thought if she said no she would just tease me a little and leave it at that, but I understand that what I said really hurt her. Is there any way I can get her to be friends with me again? Should I apologize, and if so, how should I word it? I really don't want to lose her as a friend. Too long, didn't read. I asked a friend if she wanted to be friends with benefits and now things are awkward between us. I don't think she even wants to still be friends. Commenters tell OP that he massively fucked up the girl by approaching her the way he did. He could have had a chance if he asked her out on a date first instead of straight up asking her to have sex with him. They tell OP that the girl probably feels like he just sees her as a sexual object instead of actually as a friend. OP says, "I understand that's how I came across, but that's not what I feel. I value her as a friend independent of how I see her sexually. What can I say so that she knows I still like her as a person?" Commenters tell OP that it's too late and she sees him in a completely different light now. Update. So I took the advice in the original post and didn't say anything further to her. Last night she sent me a text telling me she doesn't think she can be friends with me anymore. She said that what I did made her very uncomfortable and that she's not attracted to me and doesn't know what made me ask her that. She told me to leave her alone and to not talk to her at the study sessions. I didn't reply to that and I'm not going to today's study session. I feel ashamed and embarrassed at what I did, but I'm also very hurt that this happened. I'm upset that she's throwing away our friendship over this even though I know I shouldn't have asked her that. I also think she's been telling other people what happened. In my first class this morning, this random girl who sits near me said, "Did you really ask, friend's name, to hook up with you?" I asked where she heard that and she just told me to stay away from friend's name. I'm afraid of how many other people she might have told, which is partly why I don't want to go to the study session today in case she's told them. I also got a text later from an unrecognized number saying you're a creep. I blocked that number, but I'm feeling very uneasy. This situation has been stressful for both of us, so I don't know why she's making it worse by telling people about it. We've both suffered enough already and would be better off if we just move on. I'm still devastated at losing her as a friend and at being rejected, so I just want to lick my wounds and slowly get over it. To be clear, I accept that I've lost her as a friend and that this was my fault for being so stupid. But I feel that she's gone too far by airing our dirty laundry when this should really be kept as a private matter between us. I'm also worried that I won't have a chance with other girls at our college if they hear about this. Is there anything I should do about the story spreading, and if so, what do I do? Should I say anything to her? There's a lot of things happening at once and I'm confused as to what I should do. Commenters keep asking why OP approached the girl the way he did and why not just ask her on a date. OP says, "I thought for the last month or so that she was into me and I was pretty sure of it, so that's why I was so forward." That's no excuse for my behavior, but that's what was going through my head. I didn't want to date her, at least at first, so I didn't think about asking for a date. That would have been the better move, but she would have shot me down anyways, so I guess it doesn't matter. And I've always thought that date equals sign relationship. No, it's never worked before, but she was my only female friend, so it's not like I would try that on some random girl. Commenters ask why OP wouldn't want a relationship. OP says, "I might have wanted that eventually, but I wanted to test out how well we'd work together as friends with benefits first. I'm not really a relationship type of guy, so I can't just jump into that out of nowhere. I didn't want to be tied to someone immediately like that. And I haven't had a relationship, but I wouldn't be able to hook up with other girls if I was in one, and it's too serious for me to just jump into that." OP feels that he should face no repercussions and whines, but I don't understand what she gains from telling people about it. I'm going to be a better person and not do this again, but it isn't going to help if everybody knows what I did. I won't say anything to her, but I wish she would just let it go. Commenters tell OP he deserves the reactions he is getting from the wider friend circle and that the girl is warning other girls of his behavior and general creepiness. OP states, "I feel awful that I made her feel bad, but given my situation, all I can think about right now is how to get through this. I wanted to test the waters and maybe go from friend with benefits into a relationship if it went well. I was an idiot for thinking that, but that's what my thoughts were at the time. She won't talk to me anymore, but I empathize with how she's feeling and wish I had never said that to her. But why is it wrong to be concerned about my chances with other girls? I'm genuinely trying to learn from this, and I understand everything you've said except this part. It seems like a natural thing to be worried about, but I understand I have to learn from this and change myself to be better." And keeps trying to be the victim. I would just from her reaction alone. I don't think it's okay for other people to hear about a private matter, but I understand why she's doing it. Since OP keeps insisting the girl telling other girls about his actions is ruining his chances with these other girls, some commenters are confident that OP has never had any experience with other women before. OP confirms, "I haven't had sex, but I took a girl to prom in high school." After so many commenters telling OP how and where he went wrong, OP still makes the whole thing about himself and still doesn't get it. OP says, "Yes, I know that, but she could have kept my name anonymous and still gotten support by explaining the situation to her friends. That's not what happened, and I know I deserve it, but I still don't like having random people confronting me about this." Relevant comments Muad_Dib, "I'm willing to bet money he watches some form of pickup artist, men's rights arsehole online who convinced him that he should be betting women left, right and center because only betas want a relationship or some shite like that. Because that is the only way I can wrap my head around a guy who is still a virgin thinking it's somehow a solid plan to open with that offer, and then get mad that she tells other women in the group about him, so his genius plan can't work on them either. Literally nothing else should be giving him the impression that you seek out friend with benefits deals as openers with women, let alone women you're in class with. Ashy Pink. He said she was his only female friend, which makes me think you're exactly right. OP reads normal friendliness from women as flirting or sexual interest. A lot of men do this, unfortunately. He also seems to feel entitled to having his mistakes hidden by the person who he inflicted them upon. A classic recipe for a nice guy. Lenerva, this. I read the whole thing when it happened. He's a virgin with no dating experience at all, but he values the idea of fucking around with tons of girls more than getting to know a girl he likes, who likes him. Even though it's clearly never actually going to happen. Not with his people skills and lack of sexual experience. He has this mistaken idea that it's easy to have a harem of girls ready to fuck you. And that getting to know one person at a time and dating casually for a while would detract from your life. He thought that even going on a few lunch dates is inherently more serious than proposing a friend with benefits situation. Presumably because he assumes friend with benefits get to see other people, though in reality most people who are FWB are either exclusive or agree to talk before they sleep with others, for health reasons. He just is not at all ready to date, or even have sex with women because his ideas about sex, dating and relationships are completely wrong. Mom and stepdad asks me to have sex with the stepdad. She is a piece of crap for allowing and enabling such behavior. My mom had me at 18 right out of high school. Long story short, my dad died at 19 while he was away at uni. Then my mom remarried at 21 and had my sisters. My stepdad, we'll call him Scott, was the only father I've known. He's been a great father, nothing out of the ordinary. Absolutely perfect parenting until I turned about 19. I remember Scott was becoming a little more touchy than normal, and a little too personal. He would offer me wine, I declined, and would ask me about my sex life after one too many glasses. I brushed it off because I thought maybe he was being a nosy father and just wanted to make sure his daughter wasn't having sex. Then this kind of stuff continued, to the point where my stepdad tried to kiss me last year. I told my mom and she just laughed and told me, that's how he gets after too many drinks. I knew then I had to make plans to leave, so I started saving up. After that incident things died down a bit until my mom got pregnant at 39. It's a higher risk pregnancy so she's on a lot of bed rest, and taking extra care of herself per her doctor. A couple of weeks ago, my mom and Scott sat me down and told me her doctor said she should avoid sex during her pregnancy due to various health reasons I won't get into. They asked me if I could have sex with Scott just until she was able to have sex again. Of course, I said no. I was livid, I was crying. She told me she'd be okay with it, and she'd be in the room as well. I told her that was even worse. Like, what are they thinking? I have enough money now for an apartment, I got approved, I'm signing my lease next week. My parents are ignoring me and the whole house is full of tension. My younger sisters don't understand what's going on and my mom told me not to say anything. But my sisters are smart, they know something is really up and won't stop asking me about it, especially the oldest. She came to me crying today and told me I better tell her what's going on right now. I didn't say anything. So any advice? What do I tell her? What do I say to the younger ones? How do I tell a 16-year-old about this without being inappropriate or bashing my parents? Response to OP: bashing your parents would be unfairly putting them down for something benign. What they've done is wrong and sick on so many levels. Forget about not wanting to be inappropriate because it's more important to prevent you and them from dealing with more abuse. It is highly likely that your other sisters will be subjected to this if they have not already, and they are younger and more easily victimized. You could speak to your teen sisters privately and ask them if they have had any uncomfortable experiences with your stepdad. Like him talking too much about sex or making advances, and make it clear that you're a safe person to confide in. I would also reach out to a trusted family member or someone you can ask for help from. OP: last year when he tried to kiss me, Child Protective Services interviewed all the girls and the girls were very confused because their dad has never said or done anything to them inappropriately. My aunt, who is a child therapist and called Child Protective Services to begin with, talked to each girl and said there were no signs of foul play, which upset her because she really hates Scott, but made her happy because he's done nothing to them. Child Protective Services said it was like a roommate complaining about sexual assault since I'm not his biological daughter. My aunt has been fighting to make my mom leave for years, but since Scott is not abusive to her or the girls, and makes a lot of money, she won't leave. But my aunt has actually mentioned he's been manipulating her with kindnesses all these years so she would be okay with him having sex with me when I became an adult, and it worked. My aunt and I don't think he's going to hurt the other girls, but you never know. We most likely will call child services again. OP: my aunt and I are probably going to call again and try to get the girls out and with her, or my grandparents who want them to stay there. My concern is telling the girls. I would be devastated if I was 16 and someone told me my dad tried to have sex with my sister, so now I have to live with my grandparents. So what do I say to her? Do I break her heart? Response to OP: yes. You need to break her heart so that she will not be groomed into a sexual relationship with him. Then you can encourage her to get therapy. Another response: do I break her heart? You will never be the one to break her heart in this situation. It's your mom and stepdad who are breaking her heart. You're just the one who has to tell her. None of this is your fault. You are not responsible for the trauma inflicted on anybody here. Much easier said than felt, I know, but I can't articulate how strongly I believe this. Their trauma will involve you, but it will never be because of you. You're a good sister. A really, really amazing sister. Update, the original post is above, too long. Didn't read? Basically, my mom and stepdad asked me to have sex with my stepdad. I declined, freaked out, and am now leaving. My concern is for my sisters. My aunt did what she said she was going to do. She barged in with 3 other people, one of them a social worker friend of hers, who was off duty, and my uncle. None of them are allowed at the house, so as soon as Scott found out they were there, he called the police. Before the police even showed up, I told my 16-year-old sister and the 14-year-olds what happened. The 16-year-old got angry at her dad. She was walking around the house ranting at her dad and crying. Eventually she decided to come with my aunt and I, and then we would figure out where she could go from then on. However, the 2 14-year-olds did not believe me. They actually started laughing. Then they got angry and told me I was trying to destroy our family and how could you make up a sick lie. It got to the point where they threw my and my 16-year sister's stuff out the window. By that time the cops came and told my aunt, uncle, and the social worker they had to leave the property. The social worker friend let the cops know everything that's been going on. The cops didn't care, they just cared about the noise and the trespassers. So I, my 16-year-old sister, my aunt and uncle and their friend left. Very soon after my grandparents came and got the other 3 girls, after the 14-year-olds called them and came to their senses. I found out from my grandma that one of the 14-year-olds confronted her dad and he didn't deny anything. In fact, he called me a whore and said I should have had any problems doing what he asked. That's when they packed a bag and called my grandparents. My grandparents explained everything separately to the little one. She told my grandpa she prefers him to our dad because grandpa doesn't yell at her. As much as that pained me, I hope it's enough to keep the girls at my grandparents for good. My 16-year-old sister is going to emancipate herself and stay with either our grandparents or our aunt. Child Protective Services was called, but it was my grandparents this time. I have multiple screenshots on my and my aunt's phone of my mother incriminating herself, so we will be able to file charges and hopefully get Scott on the sex offender registry. That way the girls can stay with their grandparents permanently. Thank you all for the support. I appreciate each and every one of your comments, and to the survivors who shared their stories, you're all so strong, thank you. OP on why aunt wasn't allowed over. Because they hate Scott and know he's a creep. Many years ago when I was about 13, at my younger sister's gender reveal party. My cousin, my uncle's daughter, who is trans, decided at university that she was female and came back as female. We all accepted and loved her the same except Scott, who got drunk and lifted her skirt and said, "Do you still have your boy parts?" That's when my uncle beat the shit out of him and knocked over a couple of tables. From then on, half of my family wasn't allowed back at the house per a trespassing order. They knew then that he was an absolute perv. But I, as a young child, didn't fully comprehend it. Good comment, the cops didn't care. Why is this always their fucking default setting? Am I the A to ask my husband to block his female friend who warned him not to marry me? She has no right to interfere in our wedding. I, 26 female, want my husband, 27 male, to immediately block one of his friends, Kyla, 27 female. He thinks I'm overreacting, and wants opinions from some cool-headed people on if I'm just acting crazy, or this is something that would cross the line for you. My husband has a group of 8 friends he has been close with since his college days. Kyla is one of his friends. When my husband and I started dating, he introduced me to all of them, and everyone was very friendly. I used to hang out with them frequently. I am an introvert, and so is my husband. I would always ask him to spend time alone as being in social settings just saps all my energy away. His friends, and especially Kyla, always made it a point to tell me how he hangs out with them less after he started dating me. Kyla also had a weird energy around me. If I was with my husband, she would be the friendliest with me. However, as soon as he walked away, she acted like I did not exist. My husband hates to be touched by others, we both are neurodivergent, but Kyla would always tease him by trying to hug him, mess his hair, etc. I never felt she was flirting with him, but just teasing him to make him annoyed. Overall, she just feels like a person who has a severe social boundary issue. We got married 2 years ago, and things have been great between us. Last week, we had our second marriage anniversary and invited a bunch of people. His friends stayed back after all the guests left, and we were all drinking and chatting. One of his friends, Jen, became a bit tipsy and started complimenting me on how beautiful our house is, how I care for my husband, and how he has changed for the better since marriage. Everyone was laughing at my husband at how much of a slob he was when he was single. Jen then pointed at Kyla and said, "You better pay up, cause you had bet that their marriage would not even last for 2 years. Everyone became silent and started changing the topic. I also did not want to spoil the mood, and let it go, But it stuck in my head. After everyone left, I asked my husband what Jen was talking about. He also had noticed Jen saying that and was ready with a full explanation. He told me the story of what happened when we got engaged. When he proposed to me, he had not told his friends that he was going to do that. We went on a trip to Puerto Rico, and he surprised me there. We put our engagement pictures on Instagram while we were on the trip, and it was a big surprise to everyone as we were only dating for 1 year. When he came back and met all his friends, everyone congratulated him. However, Kyla started ranting about how he was a fool to propose so quickly, and she felt that I was not the right girl for him. Seems like she said some unkind things about me, implying I was a gold digger. My husband's family is wealthy, but so is mine. She had said that she bet we would break up within 2 years if we got married. That is why Jen was taunting her about how happy my husband was with me. I was very furious at this point, as I feel this is something he should have told me. I asked him to tell me truthfully if he had ever dated Kyla or had any history with her, as he has always told me that he has never dated anyone from his friend group. He said that he has of course not dated or hooked up with Kyla. However, Kyla had asked him out a few times when they were in college, and he always politely declined. I asked why he said no to her, and he said he just does not have any romantic feelings for her. I can see that because my husband does have a type based on me or the other people he has dated in the past, and Kyla is the opposite of that. I am just mad at her for saying bad things about me, especially after knowing that we were already engaged and betting against my marriage. I told my husband that he needs to minimize contact with Kyla and she is not invited to parties at our house anymore. He feels I am being too harsh for something she said almost 3 years ago. He also pointed out that she has been very supportive to both of us, and also helped a lot during our wedding arrangements. He feels she is just blunt and forthright when she speaks, but does not mean those things. He told me to take some time and calm down, and we would revisit this topic in a week. He is worried this will completely change the dynamics within his friend group. Am I the A for wanting him to block her and stop inviting her to our house? Do you think I'm overreacting? I think betting against our marriage and bad-mouthing me behind my back seems like a huge betrayal. I am also mad at my husband that he kept this fact from me, and also never told me that Kyla asked him out during college days. Am I just being crazy and reactive? How would you react in this situation? I don't want to distance my husband from his friends, but I also do not want to see that bitch Kyla's face again. Relevant comments. Commenter. Info. How has Kyla acted since the wedding? Has her behavior changed? You describe a bad behavior in the past tense, so one might believe she's not doing those things anymore. Does she still exhibit boundary issues with your husband? OP. Yes, her behavior with my husband has not changed at all after marriage. However, she is the same with all other friends too. With me, she is fake nice, where she acts like we are best friends in front of my husband, and barely talks to me when he is not around. Commenter. What did he think when you told him that she's totally different when he leaves? OP. He just says she does not know you that well, just ignore her. She has never said anything negative to my face. However, as a girl, you just know when someone does not like you. It's hard to explain to him that it's your feeling and not based on anything she has specifically said or done. Commenter. On blocking her. Especially with the physical contact too. She's so clearly into the husband, and the fact that he's not shutting it down means he likes the extra attention from her. It's one thing to get a friendly hug or maybe an occasional touch on the shoulder from a platonic friend, but shit like playing with his hair. That is 100% flirty behavior. And the fact that he's not shutting it down himself is gross. OP. I have to reply here. So my husband is physically allergic to people touching him. He has a startled response, either he jerks them away or tenses up when someone hugs him and his face turns red. The weird thing is he can hug his parents or sister and does not get the reaction. He never had that issue with me, even when we first started dating. However, even if my sister or parents hug him, he gets that response. So the fact that he shuts down any touch from Kyla is an understatement. Mini update in comments. Just remembered about my post and logged into the account after many months. Things were really horrible for the last few months and that bitch Kyla almost ruined my life. I don't even know how to describe it. I might write about it next week as I saw a lot of messages asking for an update. I just want other women to be careful of such snakes. Update post. I had posted almost 6 months ago regarding my husband's friend Kyla betting that our marriage would not last for more than 2 years. I was upset and had asked my husband to stop talking to her, because she disrespected our marriage. Since then, Kyla has pulled some really pathetic shit to stir up issues between my husband and I. After I wrote the post, my husband was trying to convince me that Kyla was just joking when she made those comments, and it happened so long ago. Kyla messaged me the next day apologizing for her comments and also not making more efforts to connect with me. I accepted her apology and started warming up to her. She started inviting me for brunches and girls' night out with them, and I felt included in their friend group. One day during brunch, I brought up why Kyla really thought our marriage would not work out. Kyla told me that my husband broke up with his long-term ex-girlfriend Joanna 2 months before he started dating me. I knew that part, but Kyla told me that my husband was really heartbroken after the breakup and swore to her that he would stay away from dating anyone. When he met me, my mom set us up on a blind date. She was surprised how quickly we hit it off. Kyla thought that I was his rebound relationship, but when he proposed to me within a year, she was worried that he was making a very rash decision. My husband's family is rich, and she thought it was unwise for him to marry so quickly without knowing me well. She did not know enough about me and that my family is also very well off. That is why she was concerned that I was taking advantage of his vulnerable state. She apologized to me and said that it was wrong for her to assume that, and over the years, she has seen how happy we are together. I appreciated her honesty, and Kyla and I became good friends since then and started hanging out more frequently. Around 2 months ago, my husband went to a conference in Seattle for 3 nights. After he came back, I got a "Hey girly" message on Instagram from Joanna, his ex. She told me that my husband contacted her a few months ago and they met in Seattle during the conference, and she could give me more proof if I wanted. I went through my husband's Instagram, but he seems to have blocked her. I made a mistake of mentioning it to Kyla, as she was the only person honest to me about Joanna, and she went into detective mode to help me. She was still friends with Joanna on Instagram, as they all went to college together, and opened her profile. The message sent to me was from a different profile, with no followers. We checked her photos, and we saw that she attended the same conference as my husband did in Seattle. Kyla suggested I should ask Joanna for more proof and also ask my husband about the same before assuming the worst. I asked my husband if he met Joanna, and he said yes. He told me he just met her in the expo hall and chatted with her for a few minutes. I asked him why he did not mention it to me, and he told me it was just a quick conversation, and he did not think too much of it. He asked me how I knew it, and I told him that Kyla mentioned that she saw her pictures at the conference, and I thought he might have seen her. I messaged Joanna again to share more proof. She told me that they have been chatting for the past 2 months and plan to attend the conference together. She shared a log of their messages, where my husband was actively flirting with her. The screenshots did look legit, but I did not see any of those messages in my husband's Instagram profile. I talked to Kyla about it, as I did not know what to believe. I messaged Joanna to tell us what happened between them, and she told me that he invited her to the room at nights and they hooked up, but she does not have any photos as he insisted. They do not take any pictures together. I immediately realized it was fake and messaged Joanna to fuck off. She kept on insisting they were telling the truth, and she spent the nights with my husband in his room on all 3 nights. I told her that my husband and I were playing video games, Sea of Thieves, for almost 2-3 hours each night after his dinner, as that is what we do to catch up when he is away. Unless Joanna was sitting behind him watching us play until he fell asleep, she was full of shit. I also told my husband about the whole incident, and he told me I should have come to him sooner. He told me that he has gone no contact with Joanna ever since they broke up, and he just ran into her at the conference. He told me I could check his phone and everything to verify that he has blocked her everywhere. I told him I do not need to, and Joanna might have run into him and just decided to fuck his life by making up stuff. When all the friends met that weekend, my husband and I told everyone about how Joanna sent messages to me and faked everything. Kyla was also telling what happened as she had told her about it. Kyla accidentally let it slip out that it's luckily, we are nerds and played video games at nights before sleeping, else, props go to Joanna for making up a convincing story. I never told Kyla about the video game stuff. I just told her Joanna is full of shit and I blocked her. It took me until I came home to connect the dots. I told my husband about it and he confronted Kyla. She denied it and told him that I told her about the video game stuff on a phone call, but I don't remember doing it. We have since decided to keep our distance from Kyla. Kyla has called me multiple times to meet up, but I just make up reasons that I'm busy. I do not know why she did it, but at this point, I am not interested in it, and we have decided to just see her on social occasions and avoid hanging out with her as much as possible. I feel stupid that she played me for a fool, and I should have not gone to her when Joanna started messaging me. In hindsight, it seems suspicious that Kyla started telling me about Joanna, and at the same time, Joanna claimed to have an affair with my husband. I do not know what her intentions are, but I am mad enough that I will avoid her as much as possible. I wish I had some real proof that she was the one messaging me, so that I could expose her. I also feel bad for suspecting my husband. But I am glad my husband and I are on the same page now. Relevant comments. Commenter, does your husband also believe that Kyla made up a fake Instagram account, pretending to be Joanna? Because that's pretty psycho behavior. OP, yes. He believes me because I told him that I never told Kyla why I thought the account was fake. It's possible she guessed it if I ever mentioned to her that we play video games at night, but it seems suspicious she would guess that was exactly the reason why I realized the account was fake. Commenter, why didn't you try to message her real Insta since you knew the one she used to message you wasn't her main? Why not message her main account? That would have cleared it up pretty quick, I would think. Commenter, why didn't you try to message her real Insta since you knew the one she used to message you wasn't her main? Why not message her main account? That would have cleared it up pretty quick, I would think. OP, her Instagram was private. I did not want to follow her as it would have looked really bad for me to add her, when my husband has blocked her. The only way I could see her Instagram was when Kyla showed it to me on her phone. To another commenter, trust me, I thought about this. Firstly, I will look crazy if I reach out to Joanna, my husband's ex, behind his back. Secondly, even if it was her messaging me, she would just lie and tell me it was not her. I also cannot disregard the fact that I started getting messages a week after my husband ran into her and told her that he was happily married to me. I have to accept that Kyla, if it was her, will get away with the BS. We do not have any proof it was her, and all we could do is distance ourselves from her. Commenter, why did you lie to your husband about the fact that this woman had messaged you in the first place? You are the problem here. OP, agree, I should have told him right away. I tried to be sneaky to know if he really met her at the conference. I was half expecting him to deny it if he was trying to hide something happened. I think I let my insecurity get the worst of me. Lessons learned. Commenter, did he bring a gaming PC or Xbox with him to a work conference? OP, we both use Steam Decks to play games together when he is away. My stepdaughter wants her real dad to give her away, even though he breaks her heart by skipping town and breaking promises he makes to her. My stepdaughter will be getting married on August 3rd. The wedding planning has consumed most of her and her mother's life. I say her mother because we aren't married, though we've lived together for 10 years, for the past 6 months. My stepdaughter graduated last December from university. I paid for her to go to college, though it was a state school, it still ran $40,000. She does not have a job and has been living with us for the duration of her college career and since her graduation. I also bought her a car to get back and forth from school when she finished high school. From time to time her deadbeat father would pop into her life and she would fawn all over him. Although he has not contributed a cent to her education or paid any child support, though that is my girlfriend's fault as CS was not part of the settlement, she still loves him and wants him in her life. He stays long enough to break her heart by skipping town and breaking some promise that he made her. The wedding venue holds 250 people max. I gave them a list of 20 people that I wanted invited, since I was paying for everything. They told me that was no problem and they'd take care of it. So I let these people know they'd be getting an invite and they should save the date. Saturday, I saw one of my friends on this list at the golf course and asked if he was coming. He told me that he wasn't invited. He told me that he got an announcement, but not an invitation. He had it in his back seat, along with probably 6 months of mail, and showed it to me. Sure enough, it was just an announcement, and my name was nowhere on it. It had her dad's name and her mom's name and not mine. This led to a pretty big fight with my girlfriend, as I found out that none of my list of 20 made the cut for the final guest list because 250 people is very tight. I was pissed, but not a hell of a lot I could do because the important people in my life had already been offended. My girlfriend said, if some people didn't RSVP yes, I might be able to get a couple people in. But that is an ultimate slap in the face in my opinion. So I was boiling on Saturday. Yesterday we had a Sunday dinner with the future in-laws family and us and a surprise guest, the real dad. At this little dinner my stepdaughter announced that her real dad was going to be able to make it to her wedding and that now he'd be able to give her away. This was greeted with a chorus of, "Oh how great and how wonderfuls." I don't think I have ever felt so angry and so disrespected. I was shaking. I took a few seconds to gather my composure because I honestly wasn't sure if I would cry or start throwing punches or both. Once I was sure I'd be able to speak, I got up from my chair and said I'd like to make a toast. I can't remember exactly what I said, but the gist of it was this. I'd like to make a toast. The sound of spoons against glasses rings in my ears. It has been my great pleasure to be a part of this family for the past 10 years. Ah, how sweet. At this point in my life I feel I owe a debt of gratitude to the bride and groom, because they have opened my eyes to something very important. Confident smiles exchanged. They have shown me that my position in this family is not what I once thought it was. And now a glimmer of confusion and shock begins to spread on the faces in the room. Though I once thought of myself as the patriarch or godfather of the family, commanding great respect and sought out help in times of need, it seems instead that I hold the position of an ATM, good for a stream of money, but not much else. As I have been replaced as host, both on the invitations and in the ceremony, I am resigning my financial duties as host to my successor, Real Dad. So cheers to the happy couple and the path they have chosen. I finished my drink. You all can let yourselves out. Is this selfish? I'm supposed to shell out 40-50 grand for a wedding that I can't invite anyone to? That I am not a part of? I'm so done with this crap. I'm done with my stepdaughter. I'm done with my girlfriend. I transferred the money out of our joint account last night. She has not had a job since she moved in with me. This morning I called all the vendors I had written checks for deposits to refund my money. At present, it looks like I'll lose around $1,500 for the venue, but the other vendors have been great about refunding. Too long, didn't read. You want your real dad to be on the invitation, to give you away and to sit at the head table. Fine, your real dad can pay for everything too. Update 1. The immediate aftermath was a tantrum and people sitting there mumbling while not actually saying anything to me, but to each other. After much yelling with the GF about me being selfish, I spent the night in my home office and no one knocked on my door, not once. Today's aftermath is kind of depressing for me. GF brought me bride's wedding planner to show me how much work I was ruining. I thumbed through it, found a page in the music section for father-daughter dances. All of the songs were catered to Real Dad's taste. So I thought they were just being disrespectful, but now I'm feeling like they never really gave a crap at all, especially since the menu included 2 ingredients I'm allergic to. That actually made me laugh. Either way, I'm glad to be done, returned to the planner and asked her when she and the bride could move out. Also, I never promised to pay for the wedding. I offered them the use of my home when they were sure it was going to be small, but other than that, all I've heard is how it's the bride's family that should pay. So, let it be the bride's family then, aka, not me. Final update. Girlfriend and bride are now moved out. They are moving in with the groom. It was very hard not to be petty with some of the belongings they took with them, but it's done and I switched out the locks and now it's time for a brew. I can't believe how popular this story got, but I feel good to be given support by so many. If I find out what happens with the wedding, I will let you know, but I can't guarantee that I will put in the effort to find out. From what I've heard, they are trying to scale things back and get his parents to help out. GF burned bridges when I found out she tried to write herself a check on our joint account the day after the unpleasantness. By then I had already moved money, so I guess I'm a bigger ass than her, but I could feel it coming. That's all. Thanks. Am I the A for keeping the truth from my wife? Our baby's death was my fault, and I couldn't bear to tell her the devastating reality. I, male 25, and my wife, female 24, had our daughter Angela last year in November. We met at university. We dated for 2 years and got married after graduating. It's our first marriage and we are very in love. My wife, who we will call Kim, got pregnant during our honeymoon and we were both very excited. My parents are out of the picture and Kim only grew up with her dad. We both knew that we wanted to have children and give them the best life we could. Kim's pregnancy was normal. It was our first child. The baby was born healthy and beautiful. She had perfect chubby legs and round face. I never thought that one day I could love a woman more than I love Kim, but my daughter stole my heart completely. Everything was perfect, but we were very nervous. Since we didn't know anything about babies, Kim's father constantly called us and also gave me advice. My grandmother also taught us how to change her correctly and feed her. We were blessed with a lot of help. Kim's family came from their home country to meet our daughter for Christmas. They were going to stay until the new year, but on December 28th Kim's father had a heart attack and was taken to the emergency room. We went to the hospital and my father-in-law had to remain under observation since his condition was serious. To give you an idea, he might not wake up again. I told my wife that I would stay with her, but Kim asked me to go with Angela home. Whatever had to happen, would happen in the next 24 hours. She didn't want to leave her father's side, but she didn't want to leave the baby at the hospital all night. We agreed that I would stay at home with Angela and she would stay at home with her father and her relatives at the hospital. The next 24 hours passed and my father-in-law began to improve, so the stay was extended to 48 hours, and for 72. Kim came to get some clothes and see our daughter and she returned to the hospital. Due to her concern, I had not slept in those 2 days. So after giving her bottle to my daughter, I put her to sleep and I myself fell asleep. When I woke up it was almost night. Angela was still asleep, so I decided to have a coffee and watch television. After 2 hours I decided to check on her and she seemed asleep, However, my heart stopped when I realized that she had vomited, and when I picked her up she was cold. And I wasn't breathing. I panicked. I shook her, I patted her on the back, I just desperately wanted her to breathe again. I called an ambulance begging for help. The operator gave me instructions to do CPR. When the doctors arrived, we immediately went to the hospital. I called to Kim, and between my mess of tears and hyperventilation I tried to tell her what was happening. When we arrived she was already there. Kim cried and screamed at the doctors begging to save her. I did too. They did everything they could for about an hour, but in the end there was nothing to do. My baby died at only a month old. They explained to us that Angela had vomited while she was sleeping and choked on her own vomit. She tried to calm us down by explaining that this can happen and that it wasn't our fault. Kim and I are a mess. I haven't told her that I fell asleep while my daughter was dying. I haven't told her that I killed my daughter. I want to end all of this. I can't continue with this. I miss her. I want to hear her crying. Having her in my arms. I want to change her diapers, change her clothes. I want to hug her with all my strength. I want to see her. I miss her so much. I hate myself so much. It should be me and not her. It's my damn fault. I want all this pain. It's over. I want to end everything. Relevant comments stoked for breakfast. Not the asshole. I'm a doctor. This does happen. Not just to children but also to old adults who aren't able to adequately manage their own secretions, etc. See a therapist and a psychiatrist. Both are better than just one. And you'll get through it. You're not the asshole. At all. Sometimes bad things happen. It sucks. Mary Moose 923, not asshole. Please get grief counseling. This is not your fault. Even if you and your wife weren't dealing with a family emergency, and even if you weren't exhausted, your darling baby could have passed in exactly the same way during the night, or a nap. Even the doctor told you that it wasn't your fault. Like any other parent, you feel responsible for what happened. That's natural. So please get therapy. If not for yourself, think of your wife. How would she cope with losing both you and your daughter? Also, encourage your wife to get therapy. She's hurting as much as you are. New post, wife's post. Editor's note, below is the wife's post placed in the correct section of the timeline to assist with the context. Her post took place 4 days after OP's post. Plus added paragraph breaks for readability. It's not easy for me to talk about this. It happened very recently and I don't like talking about my problems with strangers either. But right now, I, female 24, feel alone and lost because I can't talk to anyone. This is the situation. As the title says, my baby died recently and my family is broken. This happened on New Year's while my husband, male 25, was taking care of her. My family, my father male 66, my aunt female 57 and my 2 cousins female 28 male 30, had come to visit my husband and I to meet our newborn daughter for Christmas. I told my father that we could go ourselves halfway through this year, 2024, since due to his delicate health I was worried about him making such a long trip, but he insisted because he wanted to meet his granddaughter. For a few days everything was fine. My dad loved my daughter very much. He kept saying that she was just like me when I was born. I was able to see my cousins and my aunt again. She was the closest thing I've ever had to a mother. Everything was fine until my dad started feeling bad a few days after Christmas dinner. In a moment he just collapsed due to severe chest pain. It didn't take us long to understand that it was because of his heart. So we took him to the emergency room where he stayed for at least 3 days. During all that time, my husband stayed at home with my daughter, because I did not want to leave my father, since his condition was serious at first. When he started to get better I went back to my house to see how my daughter was doing. I felt calm when I saw that my husband was taking good care of her on his own. However, I asked him if he needed me to stay with him. He told me to be calm, that he would take care of everything and that I focused on accompanying my dad. My husband knows how important my father is to me, so I was grateful to have a man like him supporting me. I returned calmly to the hospital, but a few hours later my husband called me crying. It took him a while to calm down enough to tell me that my baby was dying. He had drowned. I remember very little what happened after that call. At one point my husband had already arrived at the hospital with my daughter, but they were unable to save her. Before you think it was negligence, no, my husband did not neglect her. The doctor explained to us that the baby died of sudden infant death syndrome. She choked on her own vomit while she was sleeping. My husband could not have prevented it unless he had been watching her non-stop. 24 hours a day, so no, it wasn't his fault. My daughter's body was cremated as my culture dictates, and her ashes are now in my house, in her room. The most difficult thing was to tell my father. He woke up from his comatose state on January 1st, but I couldn't go see him until the next day. Prudently, my father had not been told anything about what happened. I tried to put good face until my father asked to see my daughter. I tried to excuse myself, But eventually he had to find out only a couple of days later. I wish he hadn't told me since it caused him to relapse, and this time, it has taken him a long time to recover. During the entire month of January my cousins returned home, but father stayed with me at my house along with my aunt to help me take care of him. My husband practically stopped doing anything. I focused all my energy on taking care of my father and maintaining the house in order. It was a longer and more difficult time for everyone. My father was finally able to return to his house on January 30th, and since then it's just my husband and I. He doesn't talk to me, he doesn't eat, he doesn't sleep well, he can't work, he works from home, he doesn't want to talk to anyone, not even me. My family has tried to talk to me, but I don't want to talk either. I just ask for updates on my father, I don't let them ask me about anything else. For my part, I'm back to work and I'm thinking about taking extra hours since I spent part of my savings on hospital bills. But I really want to get away from my house. I feel like I'm suffocating there. I can't get into my baby's room without crying. My husband for his part spends most of his day there. I don't know what to do. I cry to my baby every night. I cry into his clothes, his stuffed animals, his blankets, until I fall asleep. Now I'm eating twice as much. I devour the portions that my husband doesn't want, and I keep asking for more. The house is a disaster. I feel like we are both dying and we are doing nothing to prevent it. Relevant comments leader_inside. I think you need to read this. It sounds like your husband posted it a few days ago. It was deleted, but I found the post on Reddit. I'm so unbelievably sorry for your loss. I'm 34 weeks pregnant with a baby girl right now. I read the other post shortly after it was posted and haven't stopped thinking about your family. Please consider getting professional help for yourself and your husband if you can get him to agree. If you ever want to scream into a void who will just listen, please feel free to DM me. I'm praying for peace and healing for your family. And again, I'm so sorry for your loss. Edit to add, not the wife. My God, it's him. I have to talk with him big_fly_1561. I'm so sorry I can even be able to imagine the pain and heartbreak. Just take it 1 hour at a time, one day at a time. Anytime you can do something for yourself, do it, but the main thing is to focus on working through the grief. When you are ready to talk, I would suggest you and your husband do both individual counseling and marriage counseling. A loss like this is incredibly hard on both of you individually and as a couple. Try not to lose your husband or yourself. This wasn't anyone's fault, and I hope in time you and your husband can work through the grief and pain and find joy in life once more. My heart goes out to you. The fact that you're even here expressing this story shows how strong you are. Wife. Thank you very much. I don't want to lose my marriage. We haven't talked about divorce. Actually, we haven't talked at all. I know we need therapy. Thank you for your words. Update. Hello. Am I the A? I came here a few months ago to vent about the loss of my daughter. To be honest, I didn't see the post until a week later and I saw that my account was suspended. It's not important since it was just a discard account. So I opened another one just to let you know that I have read all your comments. Kim and I we are fine, however we are in the process of being fine. Kim is also an active Reddit user and saw my post. We talked a lot, we cried, and I have to say I'm glad she saw it. Since Angela is not with us, I have spent most of the time in her room, and Kim returned to work very quickly since she no longer needed maternity leave. But our therapist gave us a lot of advice on how to deal with grief. I have been diagnosed with depression and I'm working on it with the help of Kim. She's also in therapy. We support each other in every way we can. My father-in-law is as well as can be. He recovered, but he hasn't been well since we told him about Angela. Kim calls him practically every day. She can't do much more since he lives in another country and it's already difficult enough for us. Right now we are looking to sell our house and move to a smaller place. We bought the house thinking about having a big family, but we are going to postpone that for the moment. No matter how broken I am inside, my wife is my priority right now, so I have to prioritize my marriage. I will not update again. I wanted to assure all the noble souls who supported us that we are still here and we appreciate your words and support. You're all wonderful people. God bless you. Relevant comments. Dehydrated rain. Absolutely heartbreaking, but it might be better for her. Staying home and unoccupied gives the mind a lot more time to focus on the empty room and intrusive thoughts. 8 hours of work distraction and a good therapist/psych might speed up healing. I'm not saying this to sound callous. I speak from personal experience. Family emergencies for 2 people, but not as bad as this story. Krazi 11. A part of me just broke seeing her comment, my God, it's him. 2 parents grieve the loss of their newborn baby. Neither can handle that grief and are rapidly slipping away, and they're both so hurt that they can't even talk to each other about it due to all the guilt and heartbreak. They both reach out to strangers online hoping for a place to vent, have unbiased people judge their actions, and just some place to put this all down. Without the members of these communities pointing out how similar her post was to her husband's, they might still be both grieving alone. He would still be shattered in that room contemplating suicide and feeling like it was all his fault, and she would be working herself to death. To all those involved, their child died and that's beyond a tragedy, but you might have just saved their lives. Catmo, I remember reading the original post by my husband when it was new. I had no idea there was an update. I'm so glad there was one. The original has been living rent-free in my head ever since I read it. This was definitely a tough read. I'm so glad this worked in their favor and helped them get the help they each so desperately need. As a parent, things happen all the time that are out of our control. Even if it's something completely out of our hands, I think it's a pretty natural response to blame ourselves in some way. We're supposed to be their protectors. It's hard to remind ourselves that it is literally impossible to protect them every second of every day, but it is oh so important. You can drive yourself mad with that kind of worry. He could have been sleeping right next to her bed and still not been able to do anything to save her. These kinds of things tend to be silent and happen quickly. I'm glad that Kim understood this and didn't blame him or resent him for it. It's easy for one parent to do to the other. It's hard to not have someone to blame in a truly blameless situation. I hope one day he will be able to truthfully tell himself that this was not his fault. It's going to take time, but with them supporting each other, they will get there eventually. Losing a child is not something you ever get over. They will never really recover from this, and that's okay, but hopefully they can learn how to manage their grief in a healthy way and remember their baby fondly. To any parents out there who have lost a child, I am deeply sorry for your loss. I hope all of you have found at least a little bit of peace along the way. From one parent to another, I'm sending love and hugs to you all.